Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome back. We have a tremendous stream planned this evening. We're talking about John Bolton. You know him as the Mustache Walrus, who was very opposed to President Trump for a long time, was ranting and raving about his classified documents in Mar-a-Lago. Now, reportedly, pleading guilty. We've got the latest news on that. I've got the court docket queued up. But the Democrats are not done yet. We also saw that Attorney General of Arizona, Kris has also lost her attempt to indict the co-conspirators of the president back in 2020 and took that all the way up to the Arizona Supreme Court. She just suffered a major blow today. We'll unpack what happened there, and then we'll see what she's doing next because she is not giving up easily. We also have an emergency motion on the election litigation situation that was filed against Brad Raffensperger from Harmeet Dillon. This is in the courtroom of the Bang Bang judge who was making bang bang with that police officer inside her judicial chambers during office hours in earshot of her staff. We'll talk about that before we turn our attention to this Karmelo Anthony trial, because that is happening today. It is not looking good outside the courthouse. We have some Karmelo Anthony supporters who are out there calling people racial epithets on the other side and saying that they're going to push them in graves and other things like that. Footage was apparently played in front of the jurors today. A bunch of reporting on that from the people who were inside the courtroom who did see what happened. So we'll see what their reports are. And lastly, we'll then talk about a lunatic Democrat called Paul Krugman, who is over at the New York Times, who says that he wants to essentially denazify, or rather de-MAGA-fy, one side of the entire country. So we'll see what he said and then show how that actually happens, because there was a report from an ex-Intel official who was explaining how the entire Hunter Biden laptop situation was a deception operation by the intelligence agencies. And he put together a very, very extensive brief explaining exactly how this whole thing went down. We're going to cover it here today. Very glad to have you here and with us. I hope your week is unfolding beautifully, coming close to an end, and we're glad that you're here. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking the video and all of the things. Before we jump into it, we always like to make sure we have connected. Eureka, we have. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? John Bolton pleading guilty. CNN has the exclusive. It has not exactly hit the docket yet, but they're moving some things around over there. You can see this one, of course, taking place out of the District of Maryland, where Bolton had his classified documents, and some stuff changed today. We're going to postpone some arraignments and rearraign him, and we'll come back and explain that. But as it stands, it looks like this guy is admitting he did it. And it's a strange thing to see from John Bolton, because I seem to recall back during the Trump Mar-a-Lago prosecution for his classified documents, guys like John Bolton and John Bolton himself were out there repeatedly saying that Trump was jeopardizing national security. Everyone was going to die because the president took documents to which he is entitled to take. And John Bolton was having a level 5 meltdown every single day on the cables. They brought him out. Oh, you're national security advisor. And you can now explain just how damaging this is. Turns out the entire time, John Bolton was texting his wife and daughter, sharing with them classified information that he was not allowed to share. So now it is coming down upon him. And the CNN reporters, all 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, got the scoop on this, saying Trump's former national security advisor, who is now turned into an adversary, has reached a plea deal over mishandling sensitive national security information. 3 sources familiar with the matter have said this. The deal is he intends to plead guilty to 1 count of illegal retention of sensitive national security information, according to one of the sources, and pay a fine of more than $2 million. Now, the situation here is that he could get a big plea range. So go in. I don't have the explicit language in the plea deal, but it's probably something like a no agreements, meaning we're going to leave it up to the judge to decide what the ultimate penalty is. And so a conviction on 1 count of this document, illegal retention, could result in a sentence between 0 and 60 months in prison. And I know John Bolton is a little bit of a senior citizen. We got it. But that shouldn't matter at all. Why? Because Peter Navarro was put in leg shackles on the tarmac of an airport and put in prison. Steve Bannon the same. And Tina Peters just got out of custody for 4.5 years. 4.5 years for a nonviolent offense where other people in Colorado got probation. So I think prison is appropriate no matter the age. And remember, they were also in the New York prosecution of Trump with Weisselberg. They were also throwing him in prison. So fair's fair. No one's above the law, not even John Bolton. Now, the DOJ declined to comment on this. The plea deal comes months after the top Trump foe was charged by prosecutors in Maryland. He kept a diary, and he was texting this stuff all to unnamed sources. Turns out they're his wife and daughter, and he was going to write a book about all this, just like Joe Biden was going to write a book with his classified documents. But now they say that he shared more than 1,000 pages, okay, massive scale, of information about his day-to-day activities through his personal email account over to his fam. The alleged transmission isn't part of the charges that he's going to plead guilty to. Now, it also won't include charges related to the allegation that he took home or shared classified documents, only in a factual basis, which of course is the makeup of a plea. You have to actually plead guilty to something that is based in fact. They said it's going to be something about him writing down the information. He served for 1 year in the first Trump administration, and Trump usually would bring up the quip every time Bolton came up that I just bring him in the room, and the other countries would say, this guy's a friggin' lunatic. John Bolton's here. He's going to bomb us into the Stone Age. So Trump would bring him in and then, got rid of him. Now, Trump had long been calling for Bolton to be arrested. He wrote a memoir highly critical of the president. He says, Trump, that he should have gone to jail because of this. But unlike cases against other people like Comey and others, which have been dismissed, this case has been supported by career prosecutors because it was pretty open and shut. We read all the documents. John Bolton sending text messages saying, like giddy about it, like a schoolgirl. Hey, Dad, go over here today, going to the Middle East, constantly to his family. But the FBI opened up a new inquiry into Bolton. And after his email was breached by Iranian hackers, and the dude was using like an AOL account. They're just like, what's your password? It's like, oh, it's like password 123 or whatever. And they got access to the whole tranche. They then executed a search warrant. They found documents in his home marked as classified, and he was not and never will be the president. Trump has authority to declassify, to include these records in his property. The Constitution says the president is entitled to documents from his advisor. So he's got authority for these things. Bolton, in agreeing to this, it's a hefty multi-million-dollar fine. And I'm wondering, where did this dude get all this millions of dollars to pay this mass fine? He could skirt prison time. And if I was a betting man, I would say he does, just to be clear, because this is coming out of Maryland. We've seen what happens with other Maryland judges. Remember, the Abrego-Kilmar wife-beater Garcia case was also in Maryland. They are very blue. And they're, I would imagine, going to perceive this as a prosecution of a political enemy. So in 2023, another retired Air Force officer was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Joe Biden got none because he was an elderly old man who didn't know where he was. That same year, a former FBI, and Joe Biden was vice president when he had the documents, not president. And I think there is a distinction there. That same year, a former FBI analyst was also sentenced to nearly 4 years behind bars. So will Bolton get 3 years or 4 years, or will a judge just say probation? Investigators did not allege that either government employee ever shared that with others, and John Bolton did, so he is even worse than them. Others convicted of sharing this, especially when prosecutors argue it could compromise national security, faced much longer sentences. Remember Jack Teixeira, Air National Guard. He was 22 at the time. He got 15 years after sharing this stuff on social media, stuff about Russia and Ukraine. Others in high-powered positions have fared much better, though. Yeah, because they're in the elite class. They don't get the same process and penalties the rest of us get. Clinton's former NSA, same position that John Bolton was in, Sandy Berger, was fined $50,000. He pleaded guilty to smuggling classified documents, shoving them in his underwear, shoving them in his socks, and walking out the front door. Then he hid them under a construction trailer, only to later cut up some of them with a pair of scissors. That was Clinton's person. The documents covered terror threats during the 2000 millennium celebration that were requested by the 9/11 Commission, which is why we got a lot of questions about that. Berger had been tapped by Clinton to be a liaison. Now, aspects of Bolton's case are similar to David Petraeus. He pled guilty to one count of retaining classified info, sharing it with his lover. They were like madly in love. She was like in Brazil or whatever, which he allegedly did to share his diary and other material to the co-author of his biography. Like, what is it with these people? The judge overseeing the case increased the agreed upon fine of $40,000 to $100,000 for Petraeus, and he got probation. Now, the president has benefited from the most high-profile win after being accused of mishandling documents himself, but he's the president. It's different, actually. After being charged with storing boxes of classified material in his Florida residence, they threw out the case. Trump was illegally prosecuted by an illegitimate prosecutor called Jack Smith, who was never a real prosecutor, never a real boy, a fake, politically attacked case organized by the Joe Biden, Merrick Garland administration. And so that came to a crashing halt. And of course, we hope that it will return in indictments for all of the people involved in that grand conspiracy. So that's the details on that. We're waiting for the documents to hit the docket. You see, the latest here came out today, the same date as the announcement of the plea deal. And the judge is scheduling a new rearraignment, which is a very preliminary court proceeding. And so they'll just, I would presume, enter the change of plea at that moment, June 26, kind of do it all together. It's going to be in front of Judge Theodore Chuang. The specific courtroom will be available, and order any translators if you need them. Otherwise, everybody else should be there. So that's it. Last update on the docket was May 19th. And so this happens a lot. You can actually enter a plea really at any time and negotiate with prosecutors to get it done. So they decided we'll cut him this deal. We'll see what the penalty ultimately is. But John Bolton now pleading guilty. Now, they're not done with the attacks on the president. Of course, John Bolton was one of them. He said, I can't believe Trump would do something like this. He should go to jail. One other lady who said that Trump's allies should go to jail is the Arizona Attorney General called Kris. You know her. She really wanted to indict President Trump, just like Big Fanny did and just like Alvin Bragg did and others, but she couldn't get it done. And so she prosecuted all of the alternate electors. And this case has been percolating in Arizona for a long time now, and it went all the way up to the Arizona Supreme Court. And she just got crushed today. She's very unhappy about it. So they said that the original grand jury indictment was flawed, that there were errors in the proceedings that meant that the entire case was invalid because she's a terrible lawyer and a terrible person. And so what ultimately happened is they dismissed it. She appealed it aggressively, and it went to the Supreme Court. The Arizona Supreme Court just came back down today and said, we're not hearing your case, all right? And here's the rest of the docket. So bunch of proceedings going up, coming back down, and then we get right here, June 2nd, 2026, ordered. State of Arizona's petition for a review of the decision of the Court of Appeals. So Kris takes it up to the Court of Appeals, and they reject her. So they go up to the Supreme Court. They say, please review this one, Supreme Court. Supreme Court comes back down and says, denied. You lose on this case. So you cannot reinvigorate it. It's dead. You're trying to bring it back without having to go through the entire grand jury process again. And she loses. Now, is she going to just say, okay, I'm a loser because she is, and just let it go, let bygones be bygones? No, of course not. So what's she going to do? Re-indict everybody. She came out today and said, I'm going to seek a new indictment in the Trump 2020 election case and start this whole stupid thing over again. Fani Willis just got crushed. Alvin Bragg is up on appeal. Same with E. Jean Carroll. Jack Smith lost both of his cases and is still not a real boy. And so she's going to do it again. Bring the whole thing back. Politico's reporting that she is going to seek a new indictment against the allies of Trump who aided in his quest to confirm 2020 was fraud. The Arizona Attorney General's office said, the spokesperson called Richie Taylor said, we will return this case to the grand jury and we decline to comment further at this time. And this is the same woman in Arizona who was threatening other county recorders with felonies. The FBI, the DOJ were sending out subpoenas over to the county recorders saying, we've got a lot of questions about how you conducted your elections in 2020. And she, of course, turned around and said, if you dare to comply with these subpoenas, if you give them any information at all, you're going to go to jail. And so she'll take this back. The announcement by Mays came moments after the Arizona Supreme Court publicly released their June 2nd decision and said, you lose. The brief, unexplained decision closed the book on the 2-year-old case. And of course, they had Trump in there. Trump himself was named in the indictment, but he was unindicted. They weren't actually going to charge him. So we'll see if she tries to finagle that one in. He's the president now, so it's going to be a lot harder to do that. Trump also had the protections of immunity that the Supreme Court said exist, that we all knew existed. Like, you have qualified immunity, you have levels of immunity for prosecutors, for police officers, for judges, but the president doesn't have immunity for doing things that are within his job description. Supreme Court said obviously he does. So that's another reason why Jack Smith's cases both failed, in addition to him being illegitimate. But now we'll see if she can try to add him into this. He's the president. Very hard to prosecute a sitting president, but maybe she reinvigorates this case. It comes back. And then once he leaves office, she issues a superseding indictment. You know how long these things take, and charges him. Now, it's going very likely to be a conspiracy case. And so some questions about statute of limitations. We'll see if she addresses that. The judge overseeing the case tossed it last year after finding that they failed to present the original grand jury with the precise text of the law that they were even accused of seeking to violate. She's like, well, you just did it bad. Well, I know what was it? You know, conspiracy. For what? What did we do? Well, you denied our democracy. Well, how? What was the statute that we violated? A big one. And you're going to go to jail for a long time. Well, you have to charge with some specificity. Hello. In order to do that, in November, so the entire case was dismissed. In November, the AG Kris said to the Arizona Supreme Court, please reverse all of what they've done and bring my charges back. The charges said that Trump and his allies conspired to corrupt the election. The charges included fraud, forgery, culminating in the transmission of the fake alternate electors, which are a legitimate way of handling contested elections. A similar indictment in Georgia was also booted when Big Fanny was caught indicting her lover and stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars for their cruises and trips to Napa Valley. A case against the Michigan false electors was also dropped. They lost there after a judge found that the individual electors were pawns in a larger scheme. Yeah. So 2 criminal cases targeting the false electors in Nevada and Wisconsin are still pending. And so those things are still lingering on. And just think about the lives those cases have destroyed. And we saw in a prior election, I think it was Nixon versus Kennedy, or, Hawaii, somebody sent in, forget the specifics at the moment, but somebody sent in alternate electors, and there's a way to contest elections. These people were going through those mechanisms and machinations, and then they turned around and charged them all people who thought that they were following the law, following advice of lawyers, and they had to go after everybody to take out not just the president, but anybody who would even think about contesting the next election, because that's the cover-up. If you make it possible to continue to contest elections, then the next time you rig an election, that's bad for you. So you want to make sure nobody ever does that. So this, of course, is now going to come back. We'll see ultimately if she can secure another indictment. She's, I don't think, a very intelligent prosecutor, but she is in charge of Arizona in the AG's office. So we'll hopefully see nothing happen, but maybe it will. We'll keep our eye on that, of course. Now, another prosecutor in Michigan is Jocelyn Benson. She's running for higher office because this is the standard process for them. They start at one lower level, like the Secretary of State, like Katie Hobbs did in Arizona, and then ascend to the governor once they do enough election rigging. Then they ascend up to higher office. Jocelyn Benson, same thing. She wants to go up to higher office after being a horrific Secretary of State. And she was the woman who was changing the manuals, right? So we've got laws, and then those laws generally turn into rules, and then those rules go into guidance. And that guidance goes into the manual. The manual that governs elections is for the poll workers. They're not going to go in and read, Arizona revised statute, 18 dash whatever, and then look at the law and say, well, actually, I think we should do it this way. It's like paint by numbers. What do I do? FAQ. What do I do if the signatures don't match? You open up the book. Signature, FAQ, don't match. What do I do? And so she said in her manual that there was really no checking of the signatures at all. All you do is just presume that they're valid because it's a vote and it's a ballot and it came in here, so you presume it's valid. You only would nuke a signature if it was a high level of indicia that it was very problematic. So in other words, you don't do any signature verification at all. You presume they're valid, and only if it's highly problematic do you boot it out. So in other words, you're not checking. So now we're learning that as she runs for higher office, just like Fanny and her $10,000 handbag and her fur coat and her outfit that makes her look like Biggie Smalls, Jocelyn apparently has a $35,000 Hermes handbag. It's crazy. $35,000. That makes Big Fanny Willis just drool. So that's what it looks like. Question in Michigan. Did the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, the front runner to be the governor there, did she really carry around a $34,995 handbag? And it's like, wow, man, it really pays to be a Democrat hatchet person. Remember, we saw the same thing with clavicle girl Cassidy Hutchinson. She was on one side. Then Liz Cheney comes in and corrupts her, talks to her in violation of her attorney-client privilege and her client relationship, and then brings her over to the left, promises her protection, will integrate her into all the things. She goes on to The View. She gets a book deal. We listen to an excerpt of her book, whatever it's called. She's like standing there in her white outfit, in my opinion, lying through her teeth about her handwriting and the clavicle attack and all the things. And she ends up, according to some reports, making millions of dollars. All the Democrats go and buy her book and her audiobook, and it was the most boring reading you've ever heard in your entire life. Like, nobody bought it. Somebody bought it, but she was funded by the very people who need these operatives to go out there and say whatever. So Jocelyn, I don't even understand this. It may have come from her husband, who I think is pretty wealthy, but 35 G's. There have been accusations that Benson's family, by way of her husband called Ryan Friedrichs, is making out handsomely from the Saline Township Data Center, okay? So the real fraud is coming from them. An accusation, Friedrichs' company, it's called Related Digital Disputes. But during the Detroit Regional Chamber Conference, Benson, the Jocelyn governor candidate and the secretary, made the media rounds where this photo by the Midwesterner's Esteban Clark Brandel was taken right there. $35,000. What? For what? It's like a car. The ex-user Bob in Michigan was the first to point out that Benson was holding what appeared to be a Hermes Epsom Mini Kelly Cellier 20 black bag, which from the website sells for $35,900, 35 grand, and it's used. This is a hand-me-down. The condition, it's giftable. You don't want it for yourself, okay, but you can have it as a gift. $35,000. Look at that right there. This is what I'm talking about. Who's paying? Where's all this money coming from? It's all one giant scam, and we're all just getting ripped off. So that price tag is roughly half the median household income in Michigan, according to the latest census figures. Could a candidate for governor who laments affordability issues every single chance she gets really own such an egregiously expensive item, let alone blatantly flaunt such a display of conspicuous consumption around in public? Here's the back of the bag from the Fashion File website right there. And here's the back of her bag. It looks just like it right there. Now, there's some gold tinge things around there. Oh, man. So I don't see that gold tinge there, but maybe it's just a different model. So you decide if it's a Hermes bag. This is from the Midwesterner. They took the photo. Benson has repeatedly talked about affordability as a way to connect with normal Michiganders. She even attempts to relate these struggles back on her website. She says, as a working mother, an election fraudster, I understand what it means to balance a household budget and worry about whether you can afford to stay in the community you love. And so they write, if you want Michiganders to believe she carries these burdens, she's going to need a bigger bag. Go to Walmart and go to this other store called My Air, never heard of it, and they're much cheaper too. And so you can get them over there. But this is from the Midwesterner. You know, I don't know if it's a real bag or not, or what the situation is. I'm sure she'll come out and say, no, it's not that. It's something else. I got it off Temu. Okay. So shout out to them for identifying it. It's all just one big scam, and we're all getting ripped off. Now, elsewhere in election news, we have a motion for an emergency ruling, and this is in the battle in Fulton County, coming out of Atlanta, Georgia, the Northern District there. Remember, Harmeet Dillon suing Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State over there. Don't know if he has $35,000 handbags or not, but he, of course, does not want to give up any of the voter registration lists, period. He does not want to turn those over. Harmeet says you have to turn them over. This whole case in the Northern District of Georgia has been assigned to Judge Eleanor Ross. You may remember that name because she was the judge who was making bang bang with that police officer in her judicial chambers, maybe in her robe, nobody knows, maybe with the gavel or his handcuffs, don't know. But I would bet her staff knows because they could hear the whole thing. So now we have questions about this because that judge, beyond just making bang bang with the police officer, was also attending Fani Willis events, going to her campaign victory party and celebrating with her, pounding martinis and other things in the aftermath, and then going back to her staff and saying, I'm too hungover. I'm really just, I can't do this criminal docket today, even though she did a criminal revocation hearing that morning, apparently hung over as hell, so bad she had to go home. So now, of course, she's presiding over this case, and we're asking this question, how can she possibly do that? A week ago, the DOJ submitted a motion for recusal, saying she needs to get thrown off this case. If she is going to Fani Willis campaign events and supporting her, Fani Willis was the chief prosecutor when she was making, indictments with Nathan Wade in Fulton County. And she was prosecuting the president to the fullest extent possible, even though it was also illegitimate. They went after Rudy Giuliani. They went after, 18 other people plus the president down there. And she's besties with her. So this judge maybe has some political bias and needs to get off the case. Well, that was submitted into the court docket, and the judge has just been dragging her feet on it. She says, well, there was supposed to be a hearing last week that was going to go over all of the arguments, the oral arguments as to the merits of the case. Can the DOJ get these voter registration lists? They're getting denied in many locations across the country, but they're appealing them. And we need just the Court of Appeals to settle this out. And if they won't settle this out, we need it to go to SCOTUS so that SCOTUS can handle it and set the standard across the entire country so all of the lower level district courts will abide by their holding and their ruling. And so we need some expeditiousness on this. We need to go quickly. So the lower judge, Eleanor, here, she said, well, since you filed a motion to recuse, we'll just postpone it, and here's a briefing schedule, and take your time and give me a response, and then I'll contemplate it for a month and blah, blah, blah. So now the DOJ says, no, we need to go fast. So they submitted this one, a motion for an emergency ruling. They said, all right, listen, Judge, take a break from whatever you're doing and read this with your full attention, please. The lawsuit here concerns Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger's refusal to give the United States election records, which is in violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1960 and U.S. Code. And so Brad violates civil rights. What a piece of... So according to the complaint, Harmeet sued, and this is the same type of pattern that we've seen in many other locations. The AG requested that Secretary Raffensperger produce information necessary to ascertain whether Georgia is actually complying with federal law. And it's all of the fraudsters who do not want to give up these lists. The lists make the election. They can send out multiple ballots, duplicate ballots, ballots to dead people, ballots to non-citizens, and just feign ignorance when those people vote and then don't look into anything. And so the elections are perverted and they just say, oh, it's administrative error. They've been doing that in Fulton County for years. So since you're sending people from a state to the feds, into Congress, into the Senate, we want to validate that you're sending them legally and lawfully. And the law, literally, Congress passed these laws that said that they can do that. So Brad doesn't want to do it. Kris Mayes in Arizona doesn't want to give him the list. The Michiganders don't want to give him the list. It's mostly the Blues who say, no, you can't have it. Why is that? The AG requested that Brad, all you have to do is provide a copy of the statewide voter registration list. It's got to contain all the fields that are mandatory under the law, Section 303 of the HAVA, Help America Vote Act. However, Brad declined to produce a full and unredacted list, and he says, sorry, I can't comply. Georgia law says it's my privacy. Then when they say, fine, we'll just make our own list. We'll go to Homeland, Trump's executive order, we'll compile our own list. They sue again. They don't want any checking. They don't want any integrity on any election mechanisms at all. So on January 23rd, the United States sued. They filed its complaint against Brad Raffensperger, asserting one claim under the Civil Rights Act. The United States requested an order from you, Bang Bang Judge Eleanor, directing the secretary to produce an unredacted copy of the state list. So then Brad and all of the interveners, and you can just, the game is given away by the defendant interveners. They're Norm Eisen groups. They're Mark Elias groups. They're all the same League of Women Voters and the Retired Alliance of Americans and the, poor immigrant Latinos or whatever, all filing in because it's damning for them if there is integrity at all. They all filed motions to dismiss. The United States opposed those motions, and the court scheduled a hearing for yesterday. But then we found out that the judge was, with the officer, and everybody heard about that. And then the massive complaint got dropped, and they said that we were going to keep it all private. It's going to be a private reprimand so that nobody could see it. Then we saw that Marco Polo, Garrett Ziegler, and those guys at BidenReport.com, they identified her 2 days before anybody else in the media. Nobody else was even looking. So he breaks the story. He gets no credit for it at all. Everybody learns about who she is. If you missed that video, that whole thing is wild because we read through the entire complaint and the findings, and it was brutal. Like for years, and the staff could hear them, and they're putting they have to put earmuffs on, and it didn't say that, but we could all presume. But turns out we know who she is, and she was also attending political events in violation of judicial canon, and you're not supposed to do that, so she did. So they scheduled a hearing. Then on May 29th, the U.S. filed a motion to disqualify this judge. They said, sorry, Judge Eleanor Ross, you must recuse yourself from this case. It was based on conduct of a, quote, subject judge because the courts didn't even want to identify her. That's how scandalous our whole system of government is. Nobody who investigates their own institutions really wants to punish their institutions because it's going to make them look bad. So they just say, we're just going to reprimand you. Just write some letters to your staff who are traumatized. They wanted to go be good lawyers. Yeah, I'm going to go to law school, Mom. I'm going to change the system. First day of office, you're hearing someone get, boinked repeatedly right in her office. You're like, this is a federal judge. This is not a state judge. This is not Fannie Willis. Okay, this is a federal judge, a presidentially appointed by Obama, Senate confirmed federal judge. Supposed to be like the cream of the crop. Part of a small pool of people who are Supreme Court worthy. Recited by the Judicial Council of the 11th Circuit, they refused to identify her. We found out who it was. The Judicial Council's order was affirmed by the Committee on Judicial Conduct and Disability, so she's busted. No penalty. She's still sentencing people. No ethical compliance with the code. And then to make the whole thing worse, if you missed it, she lied about it. They caught her. They knew it was her. She said, I don't know what you're talking about. She sends off these nasty emails. This is ridiculous. This staffer is mad at me and causing this whole thing up. They're like, we got video, okay, lady? We got the cushion. We're testing the cushion in your office, the one with the stain on it. She goes, what? Hired a lawyer. Lawyer came in. Then she's like, okay, I guess maybe I did do that. So lied about it, then backtracked. The whole thing is scandalous. And honestly, the 11th Circuit, the Judicial Council, they should all be ashamed of themselves too. They should have recommended her suspension. Congress should be in the middle of impeachment proceedings right now, but they're not. They just move on like, whoa, how can we not pass the SAVE Act is what's important to us. So, and during the week of May 25, 2026, last week, various news outlets identified her, starting with Marco Polo, 501c3, look them up. Judge Ross and the subject judge of the Judicial Council's order, she got outed. So as soon as they found that out, the United States Harmeet Dillon, they said, all right, we got a problem here. We want you to recuse, first of all. So get off the case, and we need a continuance on the June 3rd hearing because we don't want you, bang bang judge, to decide this outcome based on the oral arguments that are presented to you on the 3rd. So you have to get off, and we need a new judge who's actually going to be fair and not in love with Big Fanny, maybe inspired by Big Fanny and all of her trysts. So on June 1, the court granted the motion to continue and continued the June 3rd hearing pending its ruling on a motion to disqualify and bumped it out again. Now, of course, the DOJ came back and said any party opposing the motion to disqualify, she gave them a long briefing schedule. She says, okay, Brad, they're going to say, no, you're a good judge. That's okay if you were going and having martinis with Big Fanny Willis. No problem at all. Come on back and make a ruling. We trust you. So then they gave them until June 12th, okay, which is a long time. And they could order these in days. You got until Friday. Okay, get it back. I got to get off this case quickly. June 12th. That's a while from now. At the time of this filing, no party has filed an opposition to this motion because they're stalling it out. They want to stall it out because they definitely don't want these lists to be transmitted or the likelihood of that happening is lower the closer we get to the elections. They definitely don't want this to be a rejection, so it goes up on appeal, then the courts of appeals can handle it, then it goes up to SCOTUS, and maybe we get an emergency order to say disclose these records before the November elections occur. So Harmeet says, look, upon written motion and for good cause shown, the court may waive the time requirements of this rule and grant an immediate hearing on any matter that requires an expedited procedure. And that's what we need here. Good cause necessitating expedited proceedings exists here. Georgia's next federal election is rapidly approaching on November 3rd. Advanced voting begins weeks earlier on October 13th. So we know what you're doing. You're trying to stall it. Prior to that date, Georgia voters need to know that their elections are secure and that non-citizens, dead people, voters with multiple records are not registered to vote in the elections. Fairness to all requires prompt resolution of this case. Georgia's voters and election officials need answers as soon as practicable. And so through no fault of ours, we're not the ones who brought in this officer into our judicial chambers for years. We just discovered this. We just learned about your judicial misconduct that was detailed in our already submitted motion to disqualify you off this case. We know that's already delayed this litigation, but we had no choice. We had to do that because of what you did. Out of practical necessity, then, we sought to continue the hearing on the motion to dismiss so that this court would have time to evaluate the motion to disqualify. And this court granted that relief and postponed it. Now, should the court grant the motion to disqualify and kick yourself off this case, litigation will be necessary and will necessarily be further delayed by the reassignment of this case to a new judge who's hopefully not indicting her staff, and the time it takes the new court to familiarize itself with pleadings, issues, and motions. But if the court denies our motion and you stay on this case, delays may nonetheless continue should the United States exercise our right to immediately challenge that decision through a petition for a writ of mandamus. Go up to the Court of Appeals, say, Judge, at the Court of Appeals, she won't kick herself off the case. Please kick her off because she needs to go. And cite some other case law here. Courts not infrequently reach the merit of disqualification issues on a consideration of whether mandamus will issue. So they'll handle this. If you won't get off the case, this is an appropriate way and mechanism to go get and demand mandamus. See what the Court of Appeal says. So with all this going on, the United States does not lose its right to an impartial tribunal of Fannie Willis superfans simply because time is of the essence, nor does its insistence for an impartial tribunal at a motion to dismiss hearing mitigate the need for prompt resolution of the merits. And so because good cause necessitates expedited proceedings, the United States respectfully requests that the court grant this motion and rule on the pending motion to disqualify by Friday next week on June 12th. Signed, sincerely, your friends in Harmeet's Civil Division, John Casilli, who is senior counsel, along with William Mormon at the voting section in the DOJ. So all that's going out. So lots of election news happening. A lot of Secretary of State updates. John Bolton pleading guilty. We saw new indictment coming from Kris Mays. We've got Jocelyn Benson with allegedly a $35,000 handbag, and Brad Raffensperger doing everything he possibly can to delay an outcome in this case, to postpone it until after the midterms. Then maybe the balance of power shifts and the politics shift. Of course, we're going to keep our eye on this one and much more. But we completely think that this judge should get off this case and probably get out of the bench, because she is unethical and dishonest. She's a liar, lied about it, and said, well, I was just confused and I was in a tizzy because of the allegations. Yeah, well, that's what happens to a lot of people in criminal law and in criminal court. And you are sentencing people to jail and to prison, and very unlikely to give them the benefit of the doubt. And there was another major case. She was the sentencing judge in it, and I forget the name of the case at the time right now, but it was a major case of huge import. Sent somebody to prison. Yeah. And a lot of criticism for that, too. So we're going to keep our eye on the Bang Bang Judge and everything else that's going on here. Thank you for joining and subscribing as we do. All right, now let's talk about some criminal law. Speaking about all of that, things are getting a little tense out there. Footage in the Karmelo Anthony trial now released and played to the jurors. Not going to be sent out publicly, but we have some very good descriptions of what they saw today. But outside the courtroom, things are a little bit tense, and we've got a bunch of Karmelo Anthony supporters out there who are saying things like this guy right here, calling people racial epithets and encouraging the death of white people. He says the only good cracker is a dead cracker, is what this guy said at a courthouse, and there are white police officers standing right there going, okay, all right. So this is what the scene looked like. Then we'll zoom in and understand what the footage revealed, because the Daily Mail reports, I watched the footage of the race crime that is now splitting America. What I saw shocked me, and this is how it could flip the case. So more details on that coming up. And then the latest, they were in trial all day today. CBS News has reporters who are giving us text updates because the judge said no cameras in the courtroom, which is strange because we got cameras in the courtroom for Kyle Rittenhouse. Oh, yeah. We got Kyle's cameras in the courtroom for Derek Chauvin. How come? Because they wanted a certain outcome. Now, though, this is a little bit too tense. Maybe there'll be another summer of love and peaceful, but mostly fiery, or fiery, but mostly peaceful protests happening. Here is this clip from this guy outside the courthouse today. And this guy, I think part of the strategy with a lot of this is to re-engineer the same outcome that we got in the Derek Chauvin case, right? You want to assemble kind of a mob that will pressure the outcome, which will shift and shape the narrative to accomplish the same political pressure that we saw in the George Floyd matter, to enable the jurors to see the scene outside when they're walking into the building and maybe think differently, think about the fact that they, if they vote the wrong way, may be the subject of this type of abuse for the rest of their lives. Here is this clip from outside the courthouse.
Only good cracker is a dead cracker. Only good cracker is a dead cracker. Only good cracker is a dead cracker. Only good cracker is a dead cracker.
Okay, so that's what we're dealing with. And we don't really know if that's Karmelo Anthony family or if that is a feeling that is shared across his constituency. But there was a lot more from this guy and others. And here is another video. I'm not actually going to play this one because he's dropping F-bombs and all sorts of other things in here. He gets very, very aggressive. And they were getting in people's faces, just kind of losing their ability to control themselves and just like jumping into people's faces and threatening them, saying, I'll fight you, come fight me. And in this one, you can see it's the same guy, but he's saying, I'm gonna push you if I get close enough, push you right into that grave. What? Frontlines TP USA is there. FU Cracker Neanderthal. A large group of Karmelo Anthony supporters are screaming racial profanities at an organized Metcalf rally, which is Austin Metcalf, the deceased who was stabbed in the chest and died in his brother's arms, outside of the Collin County Courthouse. One supporter screamed, "You gon' end up like Metcalf. You gon' be pushing up daisies." That's in the video. I don't need to play it. You get the gist of it. But I don't know. Is this a self-defense situation? Here's another guy who's out there. This guy has a flag, which looks like a British flag. This guy is like a global warming dude. A tranny is a lie. Global warming is a lie. Sure, both factual statements as far as I'm concerned. So that's what he's mad about? So he's going to put somebody in the grave and get violent and kill them? I thought this whole case was about self-defense, not unhinged emotions and problems with impulse control. So that's what's going on out there, and they're all recording each other, and it's probably going to go viral on TikTok and maybe make some more donations go into Karmelo Anthony's funds. But it feels pretty interesting. If your person is on trial for killing somebody unreasonably, they say he was just acting in self-defense. He was not the instigator. He was not the provocateur. He did not create the situation or come upon it with any ill intent, like, bringing a knife to a school event and then saying, watch what I'm going to do if you touch me, stuff like that. Feels a little bit incongruent, almost like it's actually proving the prosecution's case, that maybe there is some provocation that is happening in this entire ordeal. So the footage has now been played for the jurors, and JD Miles is a reporter over at CBS 11. He's based in Dallas. He said jurors have now officially finished watching the, quote, enhanced security camera videos during the Karmelo Anthony murder trial. But so far, these new magnified videos, which have never been viewed by the public, still do not produce a clear visual of what happened under the tent in the bleachers of the stadium where Austin Metcalf was fatally stabbed. You can tell that there was pushing, but it's mostly obscured by other people in front of the defendant and Metcalf. And they gave us a full breakdown of everything that happened here today. And because they are not streaming this, there is no audio. You're not allowed to release any exhibits or release any video recordings or audio recordings. In fact, I think people have been thrown out for attempting to do that. We'll read through the text updates and try to add some flavor. Now, we saw that from CBS News, they say that there were no black jurors selected in the Karmelo Anthony murder trial. And this will be, if Karmelo Anthony is convicted, this will be a major point of contention after the race riots start. This is, racism, this is bigotry, and we should have had people of a certain color on there in order to exonerate him. There are other reports that some jurors were saying, I cannot convict a brother, is what another juror is quoted as saying, who got booted off of the case. I can't do that. He's just a kid. How could I put a brother in jail? And so on and so forth, meaning the whole thing is really about race from a group of people who evidently want an end to racism, which is very strange, kind of weird incongruency there. But now they've got 12 jurors and 6 alternates, and it's not even about race, by the way. I think that more strong likelihood is also that some, white lady from Berkeley would also be the one to say this is white supremacy in action or something. It's like not really even a color thing, but it's important to certain segments here. 12 jurors and 6 alternates have been seated in the Karmelo Anthony murder trial, which started today. The pool of 589 prospective jurors was narrowed amid questions about media bias, race, and a controversial immigration question that some jurors refused to answer. The prosecution dismissed all qualified black jurors, arguing the case was race neutral, a move the defense challenged and the judge ultimately allowed. And you can't strike a juror just because they're a certain color. But if you have a race neutral explanation for why they shouldn't be on the jury panel, make that argument to the judge will accept it or reject it if it's bad. Prospective jurors also expressed concerns about fairness, with some admitting that media coverage and the defendant's background could influence their judgment. Opening statements happened today. We also saw from CBS. The prosecution, when they start their case, they say this is a murder. It is a senseless murder. It has nothing to do with race in opening statements. The judge who's handling this is Judge John Roach Jr. as the presiding judge. During his introduction, he announced that both the defense and the prosecution, you're each going to have 20 minutes for opening statements. The jury is 11 women, 7 men, was seated as Anthony's parents and Metcalf parents, the charged alleged murderer who admitted to the stabbing, and Austin Metcalf, the deceased. They sat on opposite sides of the courtroom. Anthony looked on. He was dressed in a suit and tie. The prosecution opened first with Collin County First Assistant DA called Bill Werski, who wasted no time and dived right into the tragedy. He came out during opening arguments. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the defendant here, Anthony, was at a high school event, a track meet, and he plunged a knife and buried it into the heart of another young man. He caused his death, and then he ran away. And this case has nothing to do with race." You may be seeing a lot of that out there, but it has nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with Anthony's claims that he was acting in self-defense. This murder was unjustified and it was senseless. And ladies and gentlemen, you're going to see it for yourselves. We're going to have the video for you to tell the story of Austin Metcalf's killing. And you're going to hear from numerous witnesses who were there. Then the defense came out and they said, "No, ladies and gentlemen, disregard all of that." Lead defense attorney Mike Howard, he began. He said, there is a lot of noise around this case right now, and it's really a big distraction, taking away from the person that Anthony Karmelo is. He's a son, he's a brother, he's the oldest of 4, a friend, and he's an A student. He is a successful student athlete, even though he's been diagnosed with epilepsy. Now, I want to recount for you how Anthony ended up in the section where he was, which was in the opposing school's tent, and how he allegedly got into an altercation with Metcalf. Anthony walked around to get out of the rain. It was a stormy night, and he recognized someone near the memorial tent. And there he entered the tent just to get out of the rain. It was pouring and he was wet. And so once he got under the tent, Metcalf came upon him and said, "Get out of here." And I want to just share with you the size difference. He said, Anthony Karmelo, the defendant, is 5'8". He's only 130 pounds. But compare that to the Metcalf brothers, Austin and Hunter. They're football players. They're 6'1", 215 pounds. And so the size difference is massive. And that's what contributed to his fear of his impending death. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear 2 different accounts of how the confrontation happened. You're going to hear from the prosecution, and you're going to hear from us. But I want to make it crystal clear, as you see the evidence in this trial unfold, the first physical contact, in spite of the warning not to touch him, came from Austin Metcalf. And then, as soon as he was touched, Anthony Karmelo, the A student, he made a split-second decision out of fear. He thought he was going to get killed. So that's why he pulled a knife out of his backpack and stabbed him in the chest and then ran away. I may have added that last part. Now it continues on. He then says, prosecution calls our first witness, Judge. We call Mark Porter. Mark Porter comes to the stand. You tell the truth, oh God? I do. I'm Mark Porter. He's a video analyst for Tarrant County DA's office. They say, Mr. Porter, you're a video analyst expert. Yes, I am. How long you been doing it? A long time. Tell me about your background and experience. It's extensive. I'm good at it. And you were the person who analyzed the surveillance video on the day of this killing. Is that true? It is, yeah. I studied it and I analyzed it and I put it in software and I did a bunch of things to it. Well, what did you do? Well, I enhanced it. You know, there are pixels in there and there's video footage and in codecs and all sorts of things. And so there's grainy, but I was able to put it into this data and extrapolate it, and it showed a better video. So, all right, Your Honor, we'd like to move to admit this video as evidence in the case. And admitted. Okay, now I want to publish this to the jury. So I want to show the jurors the very first frame of this video. Mr. Porter, can you explain what this is? Yeah, what we're looking at here is a wide shot of the stadium. You can see the tent over here, the track meets happening over here, the stands are in the background, and what you'll see right here in the very first frame is this is Austin over here, Austin Metcalf and his brother Hunter. And they're walking into the stadium, and Anthony being escorted out in handcuffs by police. So I guess maybe two different, because Austin is now dead. And then Anthony is being escorted out. So I think maybe two different times are wrapped up into this one update. So we're seeing footage. Jurors then began, he says, okay, thank you. Now let's frame forward through the video. Jurors began watching the surveillance video frame by frame. Okay, next frame, what's happening? Well, here's what's happening. Okay, and so now they're in the tent. Yeah, and so they're in the tent. There's a group of kids. It's raining out. And then so we got Karmelo comes in. He says, walk us through leading up to the stabbing. What happens? He says, this is what I'm seeing here. This is how I analyzed it. Here are the frames. The jurors then saw the moment that students gathered under a yellow tent. Yeah, that's the Memorial High logo. They're all over there. And at about 10 a.m. at the timestamp, there's some pushing among individuals under the back of the tent, but it's difficult to tell what happened. Then the video shows all those under the tent scatter quickly right there. That's where the stabbing occurred. Everyone knew it. The video then shows Karmelo Anthony, the defendant, running out of the stadium less than a minute after the stabbing. So he's gone. CBS reports prosecutors are painstakingly going over the video, showing the jury only a few seconds of it at a time. Okay, a couple more frames. Now what happened there? So then he moved a little bit forward. And what happened there? Then there's a bulge in the crowd. What happens next? Then the crowd is fleeing. Then what happens? Then he falls to the ground. Video from another camera angle shows Karmelo Anthony being chased while running near the edge of the stadium, and he put his hands up in the air before two uniformed police officers ultimately handcuffed him in that update. Here's more. Cross-examination of this witness. All right, Mr. Mark Porter. I'm a defense attorney now. After a noon lunch break, the court resumed with the prosecution continuing to show the jury both the unaltered and the enhanced videos leading up to the stabbing. But according to CBS News, a reporter called J.D. Miles, so far the magnified videos, which have never been viewed by the public, still do not produce a clear visual of what happened under the tent in the bleachers of the stadium where Metcalf was fatally stabbed. And this is what you might call reasonable doubt. Okay, nobody knows what the hell happened, according to CBS. Prosecution then passed the witness to the defense for cross-examination. So they show the real video, they show the enhanced video. We added more pixels, AI extrapolated and enhanced it and filled in the areas. Defense attorney then comes up, Toby. He says, okay, Mr. Mark Porter, you know, you're asking people here to come to a conclusion of this, and what happened here, but you really can't tell what people are doing under the tent, can you? So we can't really know what ultimately led up to the stabbing. Isn't that true? He says, you can't see, right? He says, no, sir, you can't see. So there's really no way to determine when an argument starts or stops based on this video. Can you explain that? No, sir. You wouldn't be able to tell the jury there's an argument? No, sir. I can't tell them that. And that was an update. Let's hit the new updates. We've got some more witnesses here. Here's a scene from inside the courtroom. We've got the video you can see drawn here by a sketch artist that they're framing through. And we got some high school people. Prosecution calls somebody else. We got a coach here. And we got some good updates. Okay, so now we're up to speed. Okay, so video expert Porter is off the stand. Prosecution is back up. Your Honor, we call Rob Starr to the stand. Rob, you promise to tell the truth? Yes, I do. Rob, tell us about your background. Well, I'm the head track coach. I was there at the track meet that day. I run Frisco Memorial High School track team. How old are you? 41. How long have you been doing it? Oh, a couple of years. Starr is also the position coach for the football team at Memorial. And I also know the family. I know both Austin and Hunter Metcalf and their parents. Well, how long have you known Austin before he passed? About 1 year. And how long have you known Hunter? For about 2 years. They were both on the football team. I was their position coach. We trained every day. He said, well, tell me about the track meets. How do these work? He says, oh, at the school, the track meets are a big deal. It's $1 million industry across the country, and they help keep everybody separated, saying that a coach usually hangs out by the tent for proximity control. Things get pretty tense out there. That's why at the games, you're on one side, the other team is on the other side. So this is a common situation. You generally do not commingle. Oh, no, definitely not. In fact, coaches hang out by the tents to make sure nobody comes in. Usually they're there. Okay. Well, what about weapons? When you go to these track meets, are you allowed to bring weapons to the meet? No, absolutely not. Weapons are not allowed in any shape, form, or fashion. These are very tense events. People get upset about it. These are young kids. Absolutely no. And do students know that they're not allowed to bring weapons to campus? 100%. In fact, they have to sign a code of conduct, which includes that they will not bring weapons to these events. It's explicit. They sign a contract. And so you wouldn't expect that at a Frisco track meet, said the coach. You wouldn't expect weapons to be there because they said that they would not bring weapons. Then we have more testimony here. He continues. Rob Starr is still on the stand. Lisa, tell me about that day on April 2nd, 2025. He says, well, we were hosting the event that day. Memorial High School was the one that was there hosting the track meet. And oftentimes the team would be down certain coaches. So you said there should have been a coach that was out by the tent and there wasn't one. How come? Well, sometimes we're down a coach. We've got responsibilities. It's a small school, so we have a bunch of different hats that we wear. And since we're the host of the meet that time, there are other things that we have to go do. And so for that reason, we actually enlisted some of the throwers. They're typically the leaders, including Austin and Hunter Metcalf, to help, saying the throwers are usually in charge of setting up the tents. So it sounds like maybe even Austin was delegated some responsibility to keep the tent in it under control. So did you do that with Austin? Yeah, well, I actually sent a text to Austin Metcalf that day saying you needed to be there to step up and help. We don't have enough staff to actually manage all the tents. So Austin, can you come help? Sure, coach, happy to do it. Coach says that heading into the meet, he was a little upset though with Austin. At a previous meet, he said Austin threw and then left early. Throwing, I think, meaning that he's setting up the tent. He's putting up the actual infrastructure. So he came last time and then set up and then he went to go fishing. And so I was very mad at him. I said, you can't do that, Austin. You have a responsibility to come here and really, fill it out and stay the entire time. Like, what kind of a teammate are you? So they actually kicked him off the team, but then they talked and they smoothed it over and we let him back on the team. Well, tell us more about this day. It was very rainy that day. Is that right? Yeah, it was. And there was never, ever before a rain delay before that day. And Memorial athletes were mostly under the tent. So we didn't delay anything. We just kept performing. Though some other schools' athletes went back to their buses. So Memorial High School people, the Metcalfs were under one tent. The other kids go back to their buses. And so where were you when all this went down? Like, you're the coach. How come this happened on your watch? Well, I had to go leave, actually, to get a crock pot from a coach who was waiting in concessions for him around 10 a.m. So I heard a commotion. I'm over there getting the crock pot from another coach. So I hear this screaming and shouting. So I say, I don't need the crock pot. I race back over and I start hustling to see what happened. I drop the crock pot and I start to jog back. And then I jumped a fence and then I tried to get back to the tent where all this commotion was. I said, what the heck's going on over there? Coach freaks out. So he says, I'm thinking, man, there are no coaches by my tent. What's going on over there? So I come over there and my memory is kind of shaky. But what I do see is Austin on the ground and his face is purple and he has a hole in his chest. So coach is holding back tears now on the stand. He said everyone was screaming his name. Coach, coach, Coach Starr, do something, says the brother. My brother is dying, bleeding out. The coach testified that he was told Karmelo Anthony did it. People are saying, that guy did it. He hopped over the gate and approached Anthony and stopped him. He said, it's surreal. And it wasn't violent. He said, he put his hands on me and he was hysterical. Starr says that he got really upset, the coach. He walked away and he threw his hat on the ground. He then went over to Austin Metcalf and put his hand on his leg as the coaches were praying around him. Coach says that he then went up to Hunter Metcalf, the brother, who was hysterical, and he prayed with him, adding that at that point it rained hard for a minute and he knew Austin Metcalf was gone, almost like he was ascending into heaven, like the energy shifted, and you just know. Austin Metcalf's father, Jeff Metcalf, sat in the courtroom wiping away tears. Man, I'm getting emotional. The prosecution passed the witness to the defense. Brutal, brutal. So it continues. Now, with Rob Starr, the coach. He said, okay, thank you for that, Rob. Now, tell me, was it normal for the students to walk around during downtime and talk to other students while at track meets? He says, although, yeah, I mean, sometimes it does happen. Sometimes they talk to people, but our policy is that's not acceptable. And I think other coaches feel the same way. Now, were you mad at Austin? Like, did he do something bad? Why'd you kick him off the track team? Well, I just wanted to teach him a lesson. You have to be a team member. You have to be a teammate. And if you're going to be here on a team, you have to support your team. So you can't leave early to go fishing to 4:48. Then then the high school trainer takes the stand. So no update on cross-examination, but I'm sure that was, pretty aggressive. So then Memorial High School athletic trainer takes the stand. Tiffany Whitaker called to the stand, swears in. She's an athletic trainer for high school of Memorial. Next witness. So tell us about your role. Well, I'm a trainer, so I spend a lot of time with these athletes. Did you know Austin and Hunter? Yes, very extensively. Tell us about the tents at these track meets. Well, they're essentially like locker rooms. And they're not a place to hang out and observe. They're like locker rooms. They're for the team. You have to stay in your tent. That's why we have them. Is it normal to say hello to someone in another tent? He says, yeah, you can go into another tent, but you can't plant yourself there. It's like going into the opposing team's locker room. If you've never been at a track meet, and I don't have a lot of experience there, but that's what it sounds like. So then we get some more testimony. She says, Tiffany Whitaker, the trainer, still on the stand. What did you hear around 10 a.m., April 2nd, 2025? Oh, I heard screaming. It started about 10 a.m. And so I moved on to the track. I'm looking to see what happened. What's going on over there? She said she asked a student, what's happening? What's going on over there? And the student indicated, she says, Anthony stabbed Metcalf and then he tossed a knife into the stand. Trainer said she stopped Anthony and had a brief interaction, then raced over to Metcalf. Although at the time she didn't know it was him. The trainer thought that the student was having a seizure. She said that she went to his head and helped with evaluating him, and the coach said he could feel a pulse. She said she noticed that Metcalf was blue. She started rescue breaths, and another coach did chest compressions until the AED arrived. However, that didn't help. They continued CPR until paramedics arrived. So what were you thinking? Well, I'm kind of on autopilot at the time. I don't really, I'm just like delivering CPR to this dude. Then the paramedics came. That's when I stopped doing CPR because they were there. Prosecution then hands it over to the defense for cross-examination. The defense asked her that when you saw Anthony, what was happening to Anthony? Well, he was running and people were chasing him because he stabbed that Austin right in the chest. So more updates as of 19 minutes ago. and we're probably getting close to the close of the day. Next witness is Vincent Hooper. Vincent, tell us about your background. Well, I'm currently the head football coach at Heritage High School, and I was the head track coach up on that team until this year, so a different team at a different school. Hooper, tell us about the tents. What would you say the methodology is for these tents? Well, you know, it's actually not that unusual for students to walk to other tents. I mean, they'll do that. They'll come say hi. And what did you see? I saw the same. I saw kids scattering, and I was told somebody had been stabbed. Then he said that the trainer, Tiffany, she handed Anthony to him and says, don't let him leave. So what'd you do? Well, I put my arm around Anthony's shoulder. We walked around the track, and I said, Anthony, what happened? He said he put his hands on me. I stabbed him. With tears on the witness stand, Hooper said he told Anthony that if Metcalf died, you know, this could change the rest of your life, young man. At that point, Hooper said that Anthony started crying and he had to comfort him. Hooper said Anthony's emotions seemed genuine. He seemed like he was really upset about it, and he handed him off to the Centennial High School coach. Then the defense came out and questioned him. He said, well, so he was crying to you? Yeah. Did he feel remorseful? Yeah. Did you believe him? Yeah, I did. Now, I don't think he thought he stabbed him in the spot that he stabbed him in. Like he wasn't intending to kill him. But he did. So that is the latest update. And the trial is now underway. Now we've got some more. We'll come back and see if there's anything else that's happening there. It's coming to the close of trial. But the footage that was played, we have a more detailed breakdown from the Daily Mail. Testimony is underway. The video was shown, and I'm very curious to see if this is the only video that we see. I would imagine that there are a bunch of other students who recorded other things that may show up as exhibits. But here is the scene of the track field and what we're learning about where the whole thing went down. This is a report from Marianne Martinez, who was in the courthouse today, saying it was just after 10 a.m. on April 2nd. Should have been a typical high school track meet in Frisco, Texas. Students were warming up and stretching, patiently waiting for the competition to resume. Spectators and some students took cover under a tent. The atmosphere was calm and uneventful until it turned to bloodshed. In a matter of seconds, 17-year-old Karmelo Anthony fatally stabbed 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. The Daily Mail was one of only 2 news organizations that was granted access to the surveillance footage of the deadly incident that has now shocked the nation and is igniting debates about race and other things. It was a 40-minute surveillance video recorded from a stationary camera on the opposite side of the football field. It captures the 10 minutes leading up to the attack and the desperate efforts by Metcalf's brother, Hunter, just brutal, and others to try to save his life as he's bleeding out and dying. Metcalf, a student at Memorial High, was stabbed after confronting Anthony in, language, who attended Centennial High School, about sitting under a tent he was not affiliated with, according to police and other statements. There's Austin, and there's Anthony, 2 17-year-olds, one now dead. A Collin County grand jury indicted Anthony. Now the trial is underway. Now, initially, the Frisco police said an altercation between the teens led to the violent encounter. However, the footage reviewed by the Daily Mail shows no obvious physical confrontation between the two prior to the stabbing. Wow. So from their viewing, no obvious physical confrontation. The self-defense argument was that Austin pushed him. Austin pushes Anthony. Anthony fears for his life. Dude's bigger than him, so he stabs him in the chest, killing him. Now, the Daily Mail did not detect anything that indicated that chaos was about to ensue. Strict guidelines were enforced for viewing the footage. Reporters were only permitted to take handwritten notes and were barred from capturing or republishing stills or even clips. Which is interesting because, we saw the George Floyd video on repeat 24/7 for months. Captured by high-angle camera positioned near the press box and typically used for football broadcast, the footage shows the tent at the top of the screen. Students are sitting idly beneath it, waiting for the competition to start. Here is a little bit more. So they went and took some photographs. Approximate location of the tent here. Metcalf's body was moved down here. We've got another angle. Police investigate the scene under the tent where the stabbing took place. Anthony says he stabbed Metcalf in self-defense, but the Daily Mail says there was no evidence of an altercation. There is Austin, 17, bleeding out in his brother's arms. May he rest in peace. And there's the family. Nice looking family. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, it becomes apparent that the moment has happened when an armed Anthony attacked Metcalf. So they see no altercation. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, okay, not somebody's getting pushed, and then he lunges back. It's just a stabbing. The stabbing itself is not visible on camera, but the reaction is immediate. Students are seen fleeing under the tent. While police later confirmed Anthony fled the scene, he cannot be clearly identified in the footage either. Moments later, at least 2 people can be seen carrying an injured Metcalf down the bleachers to a walkway at the bottom of the seating area. More individuals, including some adults, are rushing to his side. As rain begins to fall again, Metcalf is visibly cradled in the arms of his twin brother. Brutal. Bleeding heavily as they await emergency medical services, man. Brutal. His father recounted how his sons were together in a press interview after the attack. It took 10 minutes for the ambulance to arrive after the stabbing. Paramedics were seen entering a gate near the end zone, driving to the 50-yard line. As they took the stretcher out the back of the vehicle, they seemed to realize that they needed to take another route to reach the gravely wounded Metcalf. So they walked backward toward the end zone and through another entrance to the bleachers. The medics eventually reached Metcalf. However, any treatment is obscured by the ambulance. Parks in front of the camera. Police are also seen covering the area of the tent with a blue tarp, presumably to preserve the evidence in the pouring rain. The ambulance with Metcalf inside did not leave until 10:27, nearly an hour, half an hour after the stabbing. He was pronounced dead at the hospital. Police can be seen investigating under the tent in the final few minutes. Then the video comes to an end. Here's the scene where it all happened at that stadium. While other video angles may exist, the surveillance reviewed appears to challenge the self-defense claim, offering little visible evidence that Anthony was in immediate danger before the attack. And even a push is not imminent death or injury, right? Even if you're there, it's like you use reasonable force for the force that is being imposed upon you. Not if you're brushed, you get to stab somebody. The Frisco Police Department and the attorney, Mike Brown, did not respond to a request for comment. Though he was 17 at the time, he's now been charged as an adult, was permitted to graduate. Anthony was placed under house arrest at a secret location, bond reduced, now living in a gated community. He spent nearly 2 weeks in jail before the judge said, we'll let you out. Go back on house arrest. He's raised a ton of money, now $616,000, while the GoFundMe for Metcalf, around the same figure, but not nearly as much, $579,000 to $616,000. So just brutal, man. All right, so let's see if there's any other updates here. Trial is probably closing out for the day, I would imagine, so we may not have any other updates here. Fox News was also outside there, reporting from outside the courthouse. Brooke Taylor says, things got heated outside the courthouse as Karmelo Anthony's murder trial got underway. Supporters on both sides squared off, shouted, and antagonized each other. Anthony is charged with fatally stabbing 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. The case has drawn national attention. Now race once again becoming a major issue. Prosecutors, though, say this case has nothing to do with race or self-defense. It was a murder. Here is Brooke Taylor.
McKinney, Texas, with the latest. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, John. Well, the jury just returned from a lunch break. There are cameras not allowed inside the courthouse. But if you look behind me, check out what's happening outside the courtroom here. You have protesters on both sides. They've been arguing with each other, antagonizing each other. We have the sheriff's office here making sure that things don't get out of control. You know, this case, it has sparked some strong emotions. Karmelo Anthony's defense today arguing this is a case of self-defense. Prosecutors, on the other hand, calling it a, quote, provoked, unjustified murder. 17-year-old football star Austin Metcalf was stabbed during a high school track meet back in April of 2025. Police say the confrontation started when Metcalf told Anthony he wasn't supposed to be in his team's tent. Investigators say it quickly escalated, ending when Anthony pulled out a knife and stabbed Metcalf in the chest. Anthony has pleaded not guilty to murder. Race, though, as you mentioned, it's become a major issue surrounding this case. Supporters raising hundreds of thousands of dollars online for the teen charged with murder.
We came by plane, by bus, by cars. We traveled.
But today in court, prosecutors said this is not a case of race or self-defense. They said that Metcalf was unarmed and argued that Anthony provoked this fight and pulled out a hidden knife. Metcalf's twin brother and mom previously spoke to Fox.
He always was one to step up and be the person that would do the right thing. And he was doing the right thing by saying to this gentleman that you're not supposed to be in this tent. This is like because they have personal items there.
And John, back out here live, we're going to keep an eye on what's happening between these protesters and supporters on both sides. Inside the courtroom, I'm told that they're starting to hear witness testimony, including some surveillance footage.
All right, we look forward to.
All right, so things are tense outside the courtroom, and the trial is going to pick back up tomorrow. My understanding is that they will also be going on Saturdays. And so as these developments continue to unfold, we'll keep our eye on them, and hopefully you join us as we do. Very, very tense trial ahead, and presumably a lot more evidence will be coming soon. So we'll come back on it. We'll pause here on this one for today, but be back with a follow-up until we reach the conclusion. Thank you for joining and subscribing as we do. All right, we got one final update today, my friends. And this is another lunatic who is out there who would probably be okay, you know, doing similar types of eliminations. But this is an interesting one. A New York Times insane unhinged journalist called Paul Krugman, who you may have heard of before, is now out there on his Substack saying that we need to de-MAGA-fy America. And how do they do that? Similar to De-Nazification. And so we'll listen to this video. This guy still writes over there because that's the type of political news organization that he works for. But we also have a follow-up to how they impose their deception operations on us. So it is a new report from an ex-Intel official that is detailed here, explaining specifically how the Hunter Biden laptop scam, the letter of the 51, was literal tradecraft. It was intelligence, deception, organized and deposed upon the American people, all in this wild report. So stick around for that. But this is how they operate and how they think. They'll do anything possible to win and keep political power. Here's Paul Krugman explaining what their end game ultimately is, should they ever regain power.
We need to defang Trump as much as possible and make sure that neither he nor anybody who follows in his footsteps has power after the next two elections. But beyond that, we really need to do a thorough purging of the United States. We need a De-MAGA-fication, and that is, you know, I'm not going over the top by using a word that's very similar to the De-Nazification that we pursued successfully after World War II in Germany.
We need a purge in America. We need to defang Trump. We need to defang anybody who would even think about Trump. Like, they already tried this, by the way. They already tried to prosecute him 4 times, kick him off the ballot. They created an entire J6 Hope as an exit plan to try to smear anybody who was even Trump aligned as a conspiracy theorist if you question the election, as a seditious conspirator if you were in support of a protest that was peaceful. If you challenge their orthodoxy at all, they will try to put you in jail. Many people have died as a result of their inclinations. And now he's saying they need to step it up. It is crazy, the language that they're using, similar to De-Nazification. A group of people who committed a genocide is the equivalent of the American MAGA voter and the American Trump supporter. These people are crazy, but I'm flagging that just so that we know this is what they're saying on their own little private Substack, thinking that nobody else is really talking too much about it. He writes for the New York Times. They hire him. This is the ideology that they want to promote. And just think about if this was the inverse, if some Trump acolyte was saying that we need to purge all the Democrats and denazify their party, which they do have Nazis in their party. They have Graham Plattner, who had a Nazi Totenkampf tattooed on his chest. Well, not that Nazi, though, only the MAGA Nazis. It's crazy. They're doing everything they can to make sure they have power in perpetuity, and this is another way that they act. So this report came over from justthenews.com. This is an ex-Intel official, and this one's very interesting because he walks us through all of the techniques and the tactics that were used in the Hunter Biden laptop to brainwash the entire population. Things like authority laundering, credential bundling, collective endorsement framing, coordinated amplification, inference stacking, caveat shielding, timing exploitation, impact-aware messaging. All of it conducted by the CIA, by the NSA, and others in order to rig and steal an election in 2020. But now they want to denazify us, de-MAGA-fy us, even though they're for questioning elections and for daring to challenge their power. Now, of course, it is something that they need to deploy across the entire country. So this guy has now referred this over to the DOJ. The October 2020 open letter released as voters were making, we're talking about the 51 laptop letter, is the subject of the memo. The guy who wrote it is called Thomas Coons. The former official submitted the memo recently to the Intelligence Community Inspector General. He was a senior intelligence officer and former advisor to the Deputy Director of National Intelligence back during Obama. He told the IG that most of his career in the government centered on maintaining the intelligence community's analytic and integrity standards. This is not a political statement. This is a communication that this was an intelligence operation meant to brainwash the population. And now Hunter Biden's on X. Everybody's loving Hunter Biden. Oh, he's so funny and interesting and so how curious. And the intelligence battle continues as the truth remains the eternal fight. But here's what this guy wrote. And he sent this over to the Inspector General for further investigation. He says, listen, I respectfully submit this memo for your consideration. This concerns the planning, the drafting, and the dissemination of the October 19, 2020 public statement on the Hunter Biden laptop, commonly referred to as the Letter of 51. The intelligence letter, it was organized by John Brennan and Mike Morrell, former CIA directors. It was approved by the CIA through their approval board. You have to, before you publish any documents, send it to them. They say, sure, get it out. Mike Morrell was a CIA contractor. He disputes that, but there's evidence that he is. So he was getting paid by the CIA. And apparently they use CIA facilities like buildings and office rooms to organize and to get together to write this memo. The memo, the 51 laptop letter, which said that Hunter Biden's disgusting laptop that showed evidence not only of his debauchery, but other collusion with Joe and other evidence of deeper crimes, would be devastating to Joe Biden in the middle of the election. So right before the debate, Anthony Blinken facilitated this letter being drafted with John Brennan and others, and they gave it back to Joe so that he had this as a literal talking point right before the debate. We all watched it happen. The media said, oh, great, it's Russian disinformation. So it took the legs out of the entire story in conjunction with the FBI and other intelligence agencies doing their hack and leak training so that Mark Zuckerberg and others would suppress the story when Miranda Devine broke the story on the New York Post, buried the whole thing. We were under an intelligence deception operation in multiple ways. We had COVID going on. We had Summer of Love and George Floyd. We have now the literal CIA colluding to rig the election. So anytime you're an election conspiracy theorist, it's right here. An intelligence asset is explaining the CIA rigged the election in the court of public opinion through intelligence operations. This memo applies established analytic integrity standards and tradecraft practices as diagnostic frameworks to evaluate whether the conduct at issue here is consistent with a coordinated intelligence deception operation. It is. And to assess the resulting implications for public trust of our ICA. IC community. Now, the enclosed materials do not assert criminal findings or seek adjudication of any of that, but this does warrant further inquiry. And so I respectfully request acknowledgement of this. I'm available to discuss at your will. Signed, Thomas C. Coons, and he gives us some details. Now, my name is Thomas Coons. I'm a former senior intelligence officer, former advisor to Obama. I spent most of my career studying analytic integrity to make sure that these standards are being applied across the IC. This assessment is not political. It's based on my research, and it's grounded in my expertise. And so applying this framework, he says, the planning, drafting, and the dissemination of the public statement on Hunter Biden's emails, commonly referred to the 51 laptop letter, exhibit characteristics consistent with coordinated intelligence deception operations in tradecraft, which warrants a standards-based review to assess whether that conduct constituted a deception operation involving trained U.S. intelligence professionals literally targeting the American people. Now, I did not set out to re-examine this. I had not reviewed it closely at the time of its publication, but recent developments prompted a closer look. Upon reading the statement in full, I noted significant deficiencies in how its bottom line judgment was communicated, particularly given that it was authored by experienced intelligence professionals, 51 of them, at a moment requiring heightened analytic care and precision. This prompted a line-by-line review, and it raised serious concerns about the misuse of intelligence that went far beyond politics as usual. I've identified conduct raising serious concerns about breaches of intelligence ethics and analytic integrity, as well as activities consistent with coordinated intelligence deception operations involving expertise across IC, analytic, and operational domains. And so the key question involves the presence of intelligence deception tradecraft targeting the American people by U.S. intelligence professionals. So he writes, a prior review of this, the House Permanent Select Committee, they examined some aspects of the letter. They focused on issues of political coordination, campaign contact, disclaimers, and whether the statement was protected speech. But what they did not do in Congress is assess whether the letter used intelligence deception or influence diagnostic frameworks. They didn't evaluate the indicator density, verification avoidance, language strengthening, distribution channel messaging, or the effects of optimization. They didn't examine whether trained intelligence professionals misused their expertise to shape public perception. And so this review is not going to revisit questions of political propriety or speech. It addresses an analytic gap left by another prior review, saying we've looked at this, but you missed something. Whether the letter's language, authoring process, editing decisions, and release mechanics exhibits that the indicators, motive, and effects of this coordination are commonly understood, and this is complementary. It's not contradictory to prior congressional findings. It applies a different lens, one grounded in intelligence and professional tradecraft, to identify realities that the prior reviews did not evaluate. So I read it, he says. A line-by-line review reveals heavy use of deception tradecraft by skilled authors. A review of the elements surrounding this statement reveals evidence of organized, managed, and coordinated deception operation conducted by the intelligence professionals. And in the profession, deception is assessed by indicators and effects, not by confessions of intent. They all said, no, we just thought it was all the hallmarks of Russian misinformation. It's not. There are indicators and effects of deception. And when they violate analytic standards while avoiding readily available information, that is a knowing misuse. It is not error. So they knew what they were doing. And here's the context. October 2020, you remember, 3 weeks before the presidential election, the New York Post, Miranda Devine, published a story about Hunty. Within days, 51 former intelligence idiots and national security professionals organized a public statement. They said this has all the hallmarks of a Russian info op. It wasn't Russian. It was CIA. The statement carried extraordinary weight because it relied explicitly on professional credibility of the CIA. Now, the FBI, we know, had the laptop since 2019. The FBI analysis said that there was no signs of foreign tampering at all. They were actively using the laptop in an ongoing investigation. The DNI stated publicly there was no intelligence indicating the Russians were involved at all. And so based on these accounts, none of the authors or the signatories even went to the FBI to get confirmation. And notably, no former or current FBI officials, despite the Bureau's custodial investigative role, were included in the authoring or the review, FBI absent. Several authors held active security clearances, like Mike Morell, and chose not to seek confirmation. All the authors had large social and professional networks. No one asked the FBI. The primary author, Michael Morell, former director of the CIA, did not request anything classified or unclassified. And Morell, by the way, in his congressional testimony, also said explicitly that the purpose of this was because he wanted Joe Biden to win. Like, he said that explicitly. Former DNI James Clapper also strengthened the language during the editing process, did not seek any classified confirmation, and knowingly avoiding any of this is called purposeful omission, and they did it intentionally. So they then turn around and just said, no, sorry, we got it wrong. We were incompetent. Nope, it's negligence. No, it's just purposeful avoiding disconfirming info. But he says it's not incompetence. These are the best of the best. Negligence is professionally disqualifying. So the only conclusion is purposefully avoiding finding disconfirming information because they wanted to rig the outcome. What that means is this is a deception operation. Here are a couple indicators. I'll just hit the highlights here. Indicator 1 that shows this was purposeful deception by our own intelligence agencies. These were trained actors with intelligence tradecraft expertise. As high-level senior officials, they knew how all this works. They knew how tradecraft practices work. They knew what analytic standards are. They knew about information and how they were deviating from the norms. They also coordinated and orchestrated this whole thing. It wasn't spontaneous. It involved centralized planning. There was a leadership structure. There was a recruitment of select signatories to further the scam. They planned and sequenced the release. They coordinated dissemination with all of the other media outlets, guys like Paul Krugman. This was an organized op. They included certain information. They omitted the others, all an indicator of deception. The FBI had the laptop. There's no signs of tampering, but they specifically avoided including any FBI information. The operational design was also based on credential-based authority. It wasn't about evidence. It was about, 51 of them. How many can we bundle up? Evidence of the deception in the letter itself also explained that there is deception. A line-by-line examination of the letter revealed repeated misuse of analytic tradecraft and the application of deceptive tradecraft techniques. They used senior intelligence titles to launder credentials. They used analytic sounding probability language to create false confidence in the underlying assessment. The collectivism, we all think this. They amplified it. They stacked inferences. Okay, so you have to believe this and then believe that and infer this and infer that. Caveat shielding, right, where they said, well, it has all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation and not is Russian disinfo. It has all the hallmarks. And they suppressed alternative hypothesis and all these things. The whole letter was riddled with deception at a scale of a nation state. These are all ex-officials, right? They couldn't tie it to the CIA, but it's nation state propaganda, nation state deception. Wild. Now, how do you frame this with legality? If the primary intent had been to warn the American public, they would have sought confirmation by the FBI. They would have gone to the people who had the laptop. But this goes beyond DC politics. If the conduct here is found to have unduly influenced the democratic process, it may warrant examination under federal law. Conspiracy to defraud the United States, false statements by material omission, election interference by misuse of authority, hit them with these charges. And so in conclusion, the planning, creation, and dissemination of this by trained intelligence professionals meets the doctrinal definition and the characteristics of a deception operation, which is the conveyance of selected information and indicators to influence the motives and objective reasoning of a target audience. In this case, it was us. Our own intelligence community was targeting us. When trained intelligence professionals and leaders misuse intelligence tradecraft to manipulate the American people rather than inform them, Accountability is not optional, whether they are employed by an agency or not. It is essential to the preservation of institutional trust that this is investigated. The rest of this are appendices. And just think about almost like fraud, right? You see financial fraud. Somebody goes out and says, this stock is going to crash and burn. Secretly, they buy the stock. Then they turn out to have manipulated the markets, and they get charged with crimes for that, right? Market manipulation is fraud. You're the Southern Poverty Law Center. You're getting money and raising funds under a false pretext and using those funds for ill-gotten gains. Those are crimes. Same thing's happening here. They're manipulating the market, except they're not getting more white supremacy. They're not getting a stock portfolio gain. They're getting an election that's handed to them. So just like anybody who's out there shilling, a stock or a crypto and then lies to the market and then doing the opposite, that's fraud. It's the same thing that's happening here. They're acting with deceptive intent. And there's one witness right here who I think could come in as an expert witness and explain all of this. So it goes on. He had some appendices in here, walks us through all of the other details, how the actual intelligence standards work. And it's just like a menu item, right? If you're going to make a sandwich, you need some bread, you need some turkey, you need some lettuce, tomato, you need some mustard, mayo, whatever you put on there, add some bacon, perfect. It makes the sandwich. Checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. Same in criminal law. You want to charge somebody with a crime? The elements of the offense. You got to check these things off. If you miss one, it's not a crime. If you charge somebody and you're missing the key elements, your prosecution will fail. They had standards to follow. They didn't follow those intentionally. They laundered in their credentials in order to cause an entire election to go their way. They did it with intent, and I hope that they are all rounded up in this grand conspiracy prosecution. But this is the level that they'll go to, and I hope Congress brings this dude in, Thomas E. Coons, and he can answer some questions about this. And it is curious why he didn't really explain that. I didn't read it when it came out, but now I'm reading it, and I'm wondering why that is. It's not political. I didn't look at it before. Didn't set out to do this, but now I'm looking at it. And so maybe this is also part of a pretext for the charges that are coming and helping to set the framework and kind of, manufacture some agreement and alignment with whatever's coming next. So interesting. We knew how fraudulent the whole thing was. What is so shocking about it is that there has been no accountability at all for any of them for this. Hopefully that is coming soon, because if it's not, they're going to continue on just like this guy did to de-MAGA-fy, to de-Nazify one half of the country, if not more than that, using those same techniques, using political prosecution, using corrupt judges, using corrupt CIA agents in order to put people in jail, kick them off the ballots, and destroy their lives. So we'll keep our eye on these stories and more. Thank you for joining and subscribing as we do. All right, friends, if you're just getting here, it has been a beautiful stream, a little bit of a heartbreaking stream, man, some heavy stuff tonight. But we had John Bolton, not this part. John Bolton now pleading guilty, got some details about what his criminal charges or criminal plea deal is looking like. We'll have to wait to see ultimately until the docket is populated before we get the specifics, but that looks like it's happening soon. We then did a little bit of a roundup of the other people who were attacking the president, just like John Bolton was. Arizona AG lost in the Arizona Supreme Court, but she's going to submit a new indictment and take us all the way back to 2020 with new criminal charges, according to her office. We also saw that Jocelyn Benson allegedly has a $35,000 handbag. Looks pretty dang accurate to me. And that Harmeet Dillon is continuing the fight against Brad Raffensperger and the judge in this case, Bang Bang Judge Eleanor Ross, who was caught indicting a police officer in her judicial chambers. She has been hit with a motion to recuse herself. They're kind of dragging the whole thing out. So the DOJ is saying this is a motion for an emergency ruling, expedite the case, kick your butt off this case, and allow us to proceed forward. Then we got the latest on the Karmelo Anthony trial in the killing of Austin Metcalf. And outside, we have this very unfriendly fella calling everybody crackers and saying that they deserve to be dead, basically. The only good cracker is a dead cracker, which, I don't know. Is that what Carmelo Anthony was believing when he went into the tent? We don't really know. But he was out there, a lot of tense times out there, so get ready for another summer of love, regardless of how this goes down. JD Mills and others reporting on what ultimately happened in the video footage, which was released today, and the Daily Mail. So this woman says, no evidence of an altercation that took place, which undermines the self-defense claim. We haven't seen it, but from what she said, verbatim in this article, if we can scroll appropriately, took 10 minutes, seemingly out of nowhere, was the moment when an armed Anthony attacked Metcalf. So may undermine the self-defense claim. We're going to keep our eye on this story. It's going to be a very, very spicy trial, no question. We saw the updates here, latest update. Oh, we got one more update. Let's hit this one. One final update today. Jury hears the 9/11 call after the Frisco track meet stabbing. Prosecution calls Joshua Redmond to the stand. Liberty Defensive Coordinator, 911 dispatch. Redmond was at the meet and said, all of a sudden, oh, he was there. All of a sudden, there was just panic and scatter. He said that he saw Austin Metcalf, got him on the ground, put pressure on the wound, and asked a coach to call 911. At the time, it was a pretty good-sized wound in his abdomen. Was trying to push his brother to the side. He testified that it felt like 10 minutes had gone by before the paramedics arrived and he knew Metcalf was gone. Redmond also said he talked to detectives and went back to the high school to talk to other coaches, adding that he couldn't believe what happened. Prosecution then played the 911 call as the Metcalf family wiped away tears. All right, so we'll come back tomorrow. We'll hit the highlights. I'll see if I can continue to find more extensive recaps that can give us some more detail than what CBS gave us today. But we covered that. We also then talked about this lunatic at the New York Times called Paul Krugman, who wants to denazify and purge half the country, and how the intelligence agencies are literally working against us to do that. Literally lying to us, using our own agencies against us. And this guy gave a nice breakdown of how that's working and even proposed some criminal charges. Todd Blanche, over to you. Hopefully he does something. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you. It is a lovely Thursday. You know what that means. Tomorrow is a Friday. And we'll be back tomorrow to get into it again. And we're excited to close out the week strong together. Happy to have you here. Hey, we got some new membos in the house. We did not do a members only stream this morning. I did miss you. But we had a great event today. So we were this morning. January 6th is, I'm sorry, July, what the hell month is it? June 6th is National Naloxone Awareness Day. And so we went over to the Senate building. I got a picture in front of sex freak Hirono's office. This is unrelated to the story, but I'll pull this up as I'm telling the story. We had, there was a really, really nice event from Victoria's Voice is the name of the organization. And they lost somebody due to an overdose, a fentanyl overdose. We talked about naloxone and how important it is to have that available. They have it in little nasal spray. It saves a ton of lives out there. And it was a very good event. We had Trump's White House director on drug counsel policy. She was there. There was the assistant director of the DEA was there explaining about what they're doing. And so Senator Scott was there. He spoke, the senator from Florida. We had a local sheriff who was there, and it was a really, really nice event. We got to meet some friends from Fentanyl Fathers. So ericshouse.org. I lost my brother to suicide, but it was after drugs. It was really a drug suicide. He had a broken wrist, got hooked on the opioids, the Oxycontins by the Sackler family. Then that turned into heroin, which turned into suicide a little bit before fentanyl came out, but it's the same pattern. And I talked to another guy from Fentanyl Fathers. Same thing, brother, young man, I think he's like 31, lost his brother to a similar situation. And so he's there. And anyways, we're all there trying to support, stopping fentanyl and other drugs from killing all of our family members, which is happening at a disgusting scale, although the numbers are going down a bit. But we talked about naloxone. So June 6th National Naloxone Day, and you know, talk to your kids about it, man. Just remind them, like, one pill will just wipe them out if it's the wrong pill. So it was a great event. That's where we were at this morning. And then as soon as we were done there, we had a baby appointment. We are super close to having this thing. Alexis is looking more beautiful than you could even possibly imagine. Oh, you could see her. We had the video over on the members only stream. We posted a short video this morning, but you can check it out on Substack or on Locals. It's free. But anyways, that's where we were this morning. We missed you, membos. And then as we were walking out, I couldn't help myself. So I had to take a picture by Sex Freak Hirono's office. So there's your boy right there. Sex Freak Hirono. We didn't really have, much to go in there to say anything, but that's where we were this morning. And it was a great event. And so we missed you, membos, but we'll be back tomorrow with the members only morning stream. And I didn't see any sex freak activity going on in there, in case you're wondering. But now let's see who's joining us on the day. It is a beautiful day. Guilty. That's exactly right. John Bolton, the traitor, now guilty. And it's great to see that one. And that's Trump Sharpie. Guilty. Amazing. Rick D, what's going on? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we were excited about some Supreme Court decisions today, but we didn't get anything good. I was checking that docket. Nothing really good happened. There was like an FEC case. I think Verizon, somebody, it's like civil stuff. That's not that interesting. Rick D. And once again, no decision on birthright citizenship. Head on desk. And I think it's going to be coming soon, man. So there's only so many more Thursdays in June. So soon. And we hope it's going to be good. We hope it's going to be. Come on, John Roberts. Come on, Gorsuch. Thank you, Rick D. Hope you're doing well. Bodie, I think I figured out why they started using the enemies list, saying they are planning on using the selective and vindictive prosecution when they are charged. Well, they're already doing that. Yeah, I mean, Kilmar, wife beating Abrego Garcia, he got absolutely his whole criminal case dismissed because of that. Try that. If you're Trump, Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, Jeffrey Clark, any of these guys, try that. Selective and vindictive. They'll laugh you right out of court. They don't even care. But if you're an illegal alien who's trafficking 9 people in the back of his car with an expired license and no reason to be here, case dismissed. Have a nice life. Welcome to America. God bless. Thank you, Bodie, for the dono. Hey, Tim Jake, reminder, Bolton was in possession of 10 top secret code word documents. 5 of the 10 were human control system. HCS reporting is so detailed, the sources can be ID'd by counter intel efforts. Wow, that's crazy. So, like, that could have resulted in dead sources, like dead American assets. Crazy, man. Tim Jake, yeah, thank you, man, for that, for the dono and for those details. We'll see what the factual basis looks like. And, if prison is good enough for Tina Peters, it's good enough for John Bolton. He'll be fine in there. He'll be fine. So, yeah, I didn't know those specific details, Tim, but that sounds bad. And he was just like, it got hacked by Iranian sources. They went into his AOL account, probably sent him like a text message or an email. Click this link to reset your password. He's like, oh, I forgot my password again. Our national security advisor using AOL email accounts and getting phished by Iranian hackers. Probably a fake, those fake text messages you get. Oh, log in here. And then you go to the website. It's not AOL.com. It's like, T5, TP, whatever. Blah, blah, blah. Like, this is not Wells Fargo. This isn't Chase Bank. What is this one? John Bolton's like, puts his password in there, all hacked. And then I think he lied about it, right? Then he deleted everything in there. And then he's like, oh, it might be the Iranians. And then he's like, we have to arrest Trump. Trump's a risk to national security is part of his argument. The dude is just, jail sounds fine for me. Hey, Mock Schnell, what's up? 20 new membos coming in. Biblical Flat Earth in the house. Mystic Smoke, what's up? Diana Mattias, we got Miss Pris KY, welcome. We the People, Charlie Kirk, good to see you. May he rest in peace. Kristen Green, good to see you. Deanne McIntosh, we got Brian Smith, Eagle Eye. Drew the Dog Man, Dog Buzzard, Dawn is here. You need to see this now. We got Summer Love and Lisa. What's up? Grum called Tharaka. Christopher Fleming, AZ Patricia. Nicely done is here. Las Vegas Mom in the house. And Mace Windu. All gifted membos from our friend Mock Schnell in the house. Mock Schnell, thank you for bringing in 20 new friends. We'll see all of our membos tomorrow morning on the members only morning stream. And we did post, if you're on YouTube, we posted a little 3-minute video. You can see my wife's beautiful belly and our new baby coming very soon. Then we had a birth. We have to go every 2 weeks now. And it was great. It was really great. Everything's good. Baby sounds good. Got to hear the heartbeat, the Doppler effect, like fat, boom, 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 boom. Looking good, moving in a good position. Legs are poking out over here, which means the head's kind of where it needs to be. It's good. It's good. And we're not totally freaked out yet, just a little bit freaked out, but it's good. It's, I think appropriate, normal freaked out, which is good. I think that's good. Rick D. And the water is now flowing in the cleaned and repaired reflecting pool. We're going to go check it out, Rick. So we'll maybe record a video when we get over there. But yeah, that looks awesome. It's going to be looking good. I saw they opened up the valves, and so it is now filling. I want to go just kind of feel what the surface is. It's like, what is this, like a Pebble Tech? Is this a plaster? Is this a 3M product? What are they putting on there? And I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious what it is specifically. Your boy used to clean and build swimming pools. But we looked it up. It's like a polymer. We actually went and looked it up. The company that was contracted to do it, they do this sealing of like, think about like big metal tubes. It's like a sealing. It's not even, as we saw, I don't really know what it is, to be honest. It's nothing we use in commercial pools or even residential pools. Something different, but seems to be very, very, it's not even an epoxy. I'm like, is it an epoxy? Is it a resin? What the hell is it? It's really not. It's like, it's almost like a plastic coating. So it's very interesting. I'm going to go feel it. Just take my hand like Joe Biden with that kid up and down his leg, except I'm going to do it on the pool and just feel that puppy. We're going to get to the bottom of it. We're going to go check it out. So yeah, we'll record something and we'll share it here. Hey, Shiloh, what's up? Hi, Rob. What's up, Shiloh? Good to see you. Thank you for being here for 8 months as a member. One more month to a full baby. So a little ahead of us with our baby. We've got like 50 days left. Whew. Coming soon. Thank you, Shiloh. Thanks for being here 8 months. One more baby coming soon. One old guy. We have 2 diabetic candy stripped butterball turkey with a red cap and his braided camera phone. Pink shirt butterball girl with all their friends who got new. Where is this going? Who got new wigs and malt liquor dosing men. I'm not real sure who you're referencing there, one old guy, but that's a very descriptive. And that's true. Yeah, it's true. That all looks pretty true. Yeah, malt liquor and new wigs. Well, you don't want to go to an anti-white protest with old wigs. You got to, frazzle those things up. Yeah. Yeah, it is our first baby. Mostly Pleasant asking, is this Rob's first baby? It is. Yeah, baby number 1. That's why we're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. King of Biltong is here. Turn up the flavor with Peri Peri Biltong. Mild heat, big flavor, over 50% protein to keep you going. Try the full Peri Peri range at BiltongUSA.com and use code Robert and you'll save 10% off on your delicious meat. Thank you, King of Biltong, for the dono. Hopefully that is flying off the shelves. One old guy says, okay, so Anthony is a boy. Anthony premeditated the bring a prohibited weapon on a school campus. He reached for the bag with a prohibited weapon and was in Anthony's bag. Yeah. Yeah. And he was not happy to be in the rain, is his defense. But it does sound like there's not even a plausible, based on the Daily Mail reporting on the video, that there wasn't even an altercation. So the altercation would have led to a self-defense claim, right? He's under attack, so he stabs him, which is still not a reasonable use of force in return, in response to that, especially when you come to the altercation. Like, you bring yourself to the confrontation and then you get pushed and then you stab the guy. It's not how that works. One old guy, when the witnesses in that tent give their testimony, the defense will have a hard time impeaching the testimony with, you can't tell us what started the argument or what happened. Exactly right. Yeah. And I'm wondering if there's other video. Like, think about all these kids under a tent. I'd imagine somebody's filming something. They're filming everything, right? TikToks or whatever. So I would imagine there's other video, but maybe not. They did impound. We read the affidavit. And we have another channel. We're posting a lot of this stuff up on the Reasonable Doubt channel. So you may have seen that in your feed, you know, Robert Gouveia and Reasonable Doubt. We publish so much stuff. It's hard to put it all in one channel. So a lot of the criminal stuff is living over there, but we read the full affidavit on that channel. And in there, they confiscated, I think 5 phones is what they said, maybe even more, like maybe over a dozen phones, I think was reported. So why are they impounding those? There might be text messages. There might be, you know, messages to mom and dad. But the ultimate evidence that is going to be the most consequential would be video. But yeah, he brought a weapon to a school, not allowed to do that. They're supposed to sign a document that says, don't bring that to the school. Hey, the Nun Report. Thank you for the raid. Shout out to our friends. Hopefully you're sticking around from the Nun Report. We'll be looking forward to seeing you. And hopefully you had a great stream today. Howler Dude. What's up, Howler Dude? Thank you, Howler Dude, for becoming a member. We'll see you in the morning. We'll have a great stream in the morning. And we'll see what else is happening out there on Friday. Going to be a beautiful Friday. Thank you, Howler Dude, for supporting us and signing up. Hey, one old guy. Krugman is an example of tripping acid, dropping teenager, grow up to be. It's like something's fried in their brains. He just said he wanted to purge the country of half the country and then says we need to denazify. It's like, do you recognize that that's your argument now? We have to stop the Nazis of America by acting like the Nazis and purge the people who are our opponents. It doesn't even make any logical sense. Biology always wins. What's up? Thank you, Biology. Look at this. 10 new membos coming in. We got Marjorie Smith, welcome. Andrew Tannenbaum, welcome. C. Reed, No Holy Cows, NABR. I think that's sodium bromine. Nina Wasamata, what's up? Cozy in my Dior. We got Glenn Croy, good to see you. The Oakley Gaming, Moxie Dame, and Mindful Silence. Man, thank you for the membos. Biology always wins. Thank you for bringing in 10 new friends. We appreciate it and are glad to have you here. Also, thanks to Mock Schnell. Bunch of new membos coming in. Thank you for those. Sheila the Pooh, 20 new membos. Man, Sheila, you rock. We're excited to meet everybody tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Wherever it is you're going to watch, translate to your time zone. K Malo, what's up? Derek Zagorandi. We got Jamie's Gma, Being Kept Uncommon. Obsessed with Justice, me too. Priceless Channel, good to see you. Tequila Force, Glen Lake. Sharte, we got Kelly Republican. Copperwise, Sharon Rennie, Life is Fun, Mr. Turbo, Craftsy, David Peets. Thane Thornton is here, The Groove. Christina Dietish. We got Andrew Wedgerly, all gifted membos, courtesy of Sheila Pooh. A million hugs to you. Thank you, Sheila. So many new membos, man. So many new friends. Excited to meet everybody. And thanks again, Sheila, for those. Welcome, everybody. Goofy for Jesus. Hey, how was the baby appointment? Big hugs. Thank you, Goofy. It's good. Baby's looking good. Here, so we made a 3-minute video this morning. And we shared that over on Substack for free and on Locals. If you want to check it out, there's no paywall or anything. But didn't I share a photo of the belly? Where is that? Let's see if I can cue this up. No, there it is. Okay, so here it is for my beautiful wife. Nah, it's not a good photo. You can't really see it. But this is from the video. See that hand on that belly right there? Nice. Baby's growing. It looks much bigger than that in real life. But check it out if you want to check it out. But Goofy for Jesus, thank you for the dono and for being here for 29 months. That's over 3 babies, pretty sure. Need a calculator for that. And thank you, Goofy for Jesus. It was good. Baby appointment was good. And we're doing a home birth. So we were asking questions about doing a home birth. We had a little bit, should we do it at home, or should we do it at their facility in a home birth midwifery setting? So we got into that and she helped us figure it out. And so we're we're staying at home. But it was that conversation. Alexis has a little bit of a cough, which I think is allergies, and we kind of talk through that. What else did we talk about? A lot of questions, technical details. But it's good. It's happening. It's really happening. So, hey, thank you, Goofy, for asking about it. Jay Marino, answer these questions. Who brings a knife to a track meet? Somebody who wants to murder somebody. Since I'm 5'8", can I kill everyone taller than me and claim self-defense? I don't know. Are you black? I don't know. Are all white people an imminent threat to African Americans? I don't know. Maybe if you ask that guy, he would say yes, because he said the other guy we just played today said the only good cracker is a dead cracker. So maybe that's because he's making a self-defense claim even when he's in line at Costco, I guess. I don't know. But Jay Marino, it's a lot of good questions, man. I don't know. One old guy, a son, brother, a student athlete, used a prohibited weapon under Texas state law to end another son, a brother, a student athlete. He knew rules that knives, firearms, brass knuckles, and many more are prohibited by law to be brought onto campus, but he did it anyway. And he said, touch me and see what happens. Like he was spring loaded to just stab somebody. What if he wanted to shake his hand or pat him on the shoulder? Hey, great job. Hey, great job. Your team just scored a nice victory. Great job. A little tap, tap, tap. Stab in the neck, in the chest. Gosh. Thank you, one old guy. Not appropriate. Yeah, Goofy, are you going to swing by the reflecting pool to show the upgrades? A progress video would be awesome. Used to be stationed there. Awesome city. So much fun. It is awesome. Yeah, we're living here, man. We're having a good time. I had a nice lunch with a good friend from Empower Oversight, Jason Foster, amazing dude. Had a good lunch with him. We met with a candidate for Congress who we interviewed on the member stream. That interview will be coming out this weekend. We've met some, we get to go to these events like this Naloxone Day. I get to stop by Sex Free Corona's office. Lots of museums. We went to the National Gallery of Art. I mean, insane buildings. The building itself is like a work of art. Insane. Supreme Court action, all sorts of fun stuff. So we're really enjoying it and learning a lot and meeting some very, very good people and hopefully able to contribute in some strange way. Thank you, Goofy for Jesus. Yeah, we do want to swing by over there. Natalie Ray, what's up? Naloxone is crazy stuff. When I took it, when my fentanyl pump was glitching and ODing me, oh my gosh, I felt like I was going to die from it. Even Doc said having instant fentanyl cleanup could have killed my heart. It felt like my heart was going to explode out of my chest and instantly went into severe withdrawals. Wild. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy, Natalie. I'm glad that did not happen to you. That's a very scary situation. So your fentanyl pump glitches and almost kills you. Crazy. Yeah, it's pretty magical stuff. It saves a lot of lives. And there was a lot of loss today at the event. A lot of people have lost somebody. We lost somebody. Met another guy, lost his brother. Half the room has lost somebody. You probably know somebody, even in your family, who's been hit by this, or somebody, if they're not in your family, they're in very close proximity to your family. And the numbers are going down. I think it's because of education. I think it's because of the border being limited off a little bit. But it's like a weapon of mass destruction. We're getting killed by this drug that's coming in from China and the cartels. It's really bad stuff. So, Natalie, thank you for the comment and for the dono. Hey, Rubos, Trump announces a rally to end all rallies on Wednesday, June 24th at 7 p.m. Rob, we hope you can get tickets. Amazing. Yeah. So we're going to be here. Trump says on Wednesday, June 24th in magnificent DC. And so tomorrow I also have a meeting, and I've been kind of hinting at this. I don't know if this will go anywhere or not, but getting one of those live stream backpacks like all the kids have, so we can just put this backpack on. It's got a camera on the shoulder. And so it's got like 4 modems that are built into the back of it, and you can just walk around and live stream. My only concern with that is I don't know that I can get it into these events, because I was looking up the Freedom 250 events, and it's like very strict rules. You can't just bring whatever you want in there. Can't bring, chairs and stuff like that. You just got to bring like a little like Ziploc of admissibilities. Otherwise, you can't do that. So anyways, I'm going to talk to the people tomorrow about that, to the company. Little bit of an investment, but I feel like it would be fun to take this camera around, just go live stream the whole thing, take it to the reflecting pool, take it to some of the museums we go to, see if I can smuggle that puppy in, So anyways, we're contemplating that, but I'll be talking to them tomorrow about it. We'll probably just get one because, it's like we're here for once in a lifetime, so why not? But so a rally to end all rallies. We don't want crap singers here. So they're going to bring in some people. U.S. Army band. Man, that sounds nice. All right. I think we'll be there. Yeah, we'll be there. So it should be fun. A press pass. That's a great idea. You think I can get one of those? For Freedom 250, get a press pass. You can have a press pass. Man, you guys are so smart. Gosh, I'm an idiot. Thank you. It's a great idea. Hey, Rick D. LOL, another super mayor, the mayor of London, Kentucky, Randall Weddle, is being sued by American Express for $700,000 in unpaid city credit card charges and has been indicted on 4 felony counts of theft and malfeasance in office concerning the city budget. Randall Weddle, the mayor of London, Kentucky. Man, thank you, Rick D. That'll be a fun one for tomorrow. Yeah, the White House press, that's it. Yeah, the White House, that's like a taller order. But a taller order, but I'm thinking even for Freedom 250, it's like maybe they can just hand those out. Yeah, I need to like become official. I need like a business card. Like we need to turn this into a media company. Like our media company would like a press pass. We're like, okay. Are you real? Yes. Look at our business card. All right, I'm working on that too. Hey, Incredulous. Thank you, Incredulous. Thank you for the very nice dono. Congratulations, Rob. Thank you, Incredulous. I think that's about our baby. Coming soon, man. I can't wait to bring that little creature out like Simba. Oh, look at my baby. It's going to be beautiful. Might have to sing Hakuna Matata too. John McGarvey, maybe you can get a deal on some of that pool liner for your floors. Oh, John, that's a home birth joke. You're saying if the tarps won't cut it? Yeah. Well, I'll be in a poncho and like a biohazard suit, like it'll be like COVID, basically like COVID, just wrap up in COVID. But liners for the floors because we're doing a home birth. That's a disgusting comment, but it's a brilliant idea. So both disgusting and ingenious at the same time. Thank you, John. You're saying the tents won't cover it. The tarps won't cover it. That was my first question. How many tarps and how big do they need to be? Do we need mops? How many? Thank you for that, John. Jay Marino, here's a legal question. Since Karmelo self-defense is an affirmative defense, why does the prosecution have to put on a case in chief? Well, to show that it's not self-defense. Yeah, so they still have to tell the story. So they're not disputing an affirmative defense is this idea that you admit that you did the thing, but you're saying you had a justification to do it. So the prosecution is not going to need to prove that the physical act of the stabbing occurred, right? Like Karmelo saying, I had the knife, I stabbed him. There's not going to be like DNA evidence. Like, was that knife in his hand? Somebody testified, I watched that, like the knife go in there. Those elements of the homicide, of the death of the person are not going to be necessary to prove because Karmelo's admitting those things. But you still have to tell the story. He's saying it was self-defense. They're saying it was murder. So you have to walk through that, basically negate the justification part of the self-defense claim. So hopefully that makes sense. But who came to the tent? Was there an altercation? Was he physically pushed? He's saying he's justified. So the prosecution has to undermine that justification to say that he actually was not justified. It was murder. So it's more about just undermining that argument of self-defense than it is proving the mechanics of the murder. He admits that part. Hey, what's up? Bodie. Oh, I never got a response from your mom about Eric's house. Did you email them? Bodie, is that what you're saying? Well, that's not appropriate. I'll have to follow up with them. Did you email Marianne at Eric's house? Did I tell you to email? Did I give you the right email address? All right. So Bodie, let me follow up on that. Yeah, let me follow up on that for my mama. In fact, I think she's hosting an event right now, but I'm going to follow up on that. I may have just given you the wrong address or should have given you to somebody else. But let me just start an email on that right now. All right, I'll follow up on that, Bodie. Thank you, Bodie. I think you were asking about the flyers for your event. Let me get that going for you. Thank you, Bodie, for following up. Hey, Ray Hedrick, what's going on? And you can also email me too, robert@spotlightlawyer.com, robert@spotlightlawyer.com. Rob, are you going to try to get a White House press pass? Yeah, so I looked into it. It's like a long effort. I don't know about the new media one. I already did submit for the new media. There was like a form. I submitted it. They said, we'll contact you. Never got anything on that. But if you want to do it and get credentialed, I think there's a process. Like you have to be like a real media company. So I'm working on that, actually. I've got another couple things in the fire for that component. But then it's like a process. Unless you want like a day pass. I think day passes are pretty easy to get. If you want a permanent press credential, that's a lot longer of a lift. Same thing with the Supreme Court. My understanding is if you want to get in the Supreme Court, it's like a years long process. I don't know that we'll be here that long for that, but yeah, we're looking into it. So thank you, Ray Hedrick, for the question. Rubos. Hey, working on the final edits and layout for our next ebook called Prayers to Renew Your Health and Youth as the Eagles. Let's go. Man, Rubos write some amazing prayers. Discover God's biological code for your body that science is only beginning to understand. Donald Rubo with Cheryl Lynn. Man, look at that cover. I love that. Prayers to Renew Your Health and Youth as the Eagles. There's something to that. I think there's a lot to that. There was just a headline that I think 5 minutes of prayer every day. Where was that? Let me see if I can find that. 5 minutes prayer. See if I can just grab the headline so I'm not making it up. Yeah, right here. Look at this. Just 5 minutes of prayer could have surprising health benefits, study finds. You're kidding. So yeah, that's from Fox News. Patients experienced significant relief from pain and anxiety after in-person prayer. It works. Significant release and relief after just 5 minutes of in-person prayer, a randomized controlled style. There you go. Trial, not style. So Rubos, you're onto something. It's the power of Jesus. Man, it's real. Hey, one old guy. Rob, it is great to be married to a good woman. Tell me about it. And expecting a child. I remember when she told me, I was shouting while running around the street screaming, I ain't shooting blanks, baby. Congrats, Rob. Yeah, I was honestly more in a state of like shock. I couldn't believe it. We had just got married. Like we got married and like a week later, she's like, she brings me the tests. I was like not paying attention at all. She's like, I got these tests. I'm going to go try. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, let me know. I'm like, there's no way, there's no way. She brings out the tests and I'm just like, shows it to me. And I'm like, what is that? She's like, we're pregnant. I'm like, get the hell out of here. I was thrilled and elated, but I couldn't even believe it. I don't think she could believe it because it just happened so fast. It was just like, wow, like first shot. Amazing. So one old guy, thank you. Hey, thank you for the dono, man. Congratulations to you and your beautiful family. It is pretty amazing. Hey, dumb beard, cut the cord. Be a man. Congratulations. I think that's the plan. I mean, I think I might be down there like catching this baby, like with a catcher's mitt. Just like, all right, let's go, little creature. Come on out of there. And, but you never really know. I could be in the thick of it and be like, what is that? It's like something happening out of Stranger Things. What is that? Is that another dimension in there? How's this working? I don't know, but I'm excited for it. And, I'm ready to get down. Just get down and into it, You know what I'm saying? Like that's our baby coming out of there. So let's get it. Rick D. LA voters are reporting that before finishing their vote, the Dominion machines asked voters if they wanted to review their ballot in case they changed their mind. Are you sure you want to vote for Spencer Pratt? Are you a Nazi? Are you a fascist? Yes. Okay, fine. You can vote for him. If they said yes, the only candidate it offered for review to change was Pratt. Incredible. Somebody should record that, man. Somebody should record that. Thank you, Rick D, for the heads up. I think Trump was talking about some election shenanigans in California. Yeah, Donald Trump, certificate of pardon for Glenn West Lee Croy. Hey, Glenn Croy, that's my blanket pardon. That's great. So you may not be able to tell, but it's a blanket pardon. So there's two little fingers up here. So you've got him holding this blanket up. So it's literally a blanket. That's my blanket pardon. Hilarious. You turned it into a blanket. Amazing. How fun is that? Glenn, you rock. Cat, good to see you. And Natalie Ray, what's going on? Hey, I was just with my daughter when she had her baby last month. I'd say bring mops and plenty of bins and buckets. Oh, great. They actually had a huge bin underneath to collect everything, and there was a lot. Oh, this stream is just so hopefully nobody's eating dinner. But yeah, so yeah, that's what we talked about today with we got midwives coming over. Like, oh, we're going to take care of all that. So you're fine. So I'm not going to be really a part of cleanup according to them. Like, well, you might have to do a little. I'm like, that's fine. Whatever I need to do, I'm fine. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting experience. That's why I was joking about the tarps, but like not really joking. So John has a good idea. Yeah. Good to see you. Natalie Ray, thank you again for the nice donos and everything. Rub some dirt on it. Hey, Rob, I have room for the streamer backpack too. I'll stack it with the C Star as a shrine to your hobbies. Thank you for that. Rub some dirt on it. Enthusiastic endorsement of the live streaming backpack. And it may end up that way, like legit. But it feels like we should at least give it a shot. See if you guys like it. See if anybody cares. See if it's interesting at all. I don't know that it's going to be interesting. But you never really know until you just try it. So that's why we do. We just try things. But thank you. Rub some dirt on it. Extra room. I'm still sending you the C Star. It's in a box. I just have to take it down. And then we may send you the other one too. But we're in DC. Feels like we should just try everything while we're here. So that's the plan. Thank you. Rub some dirt on it. So you'll be looking forward to a new live streaming backpack too, when that's ready for you. Thank you. Rub some dirt on it with the treadmill and the jujitsu gi. Great. All right. So friends, thank you so much for those donos. Lots of fun. Great conversation. Thanks for being here. And thanks for the friendship. We've got Howard Duck says, maybe the coach's term throwing referred to Metcalf's specific track event. Yeah. I was thinking of like throwers. I think they call those people like the baggage handlers. Wasn't that in a movie? The throwers will get it. Who are the throwers? The baggage handlers at the airport. Kind of one of those things, you know? Yeah. Anyways, very colorful conversation here today. Rick D, I worked in trauma and heart surgery, LOL. We used to do procedures and then order pizza. Well, that's interesting. You start to get used to it, right? It's just kind of like, is that gore or pizza sauce? Well, it's good. I'm hungry either way. So very curious. Good to see you, Boopsy. Boopsy, have you ever seen a baby born? It's incredible. Yeah, I did. I have it scarred into my brain. I had when I went to ASU, I had a women in other cultures class. ASU makes you take some like convoluted, like woke class. The whole thing was insane. The whole class was wild. It was like 60 people, all females. First day, I was one of 3 dudes in the class. They left. They were like, we're out of here. I couldn't leave. It was like perfect in my schedule. I needed this credit, like a specific like woke communist credit. So I needed it. So I stayed in this and it was awful. It was terrible. Like anti-men, hate men type of thing. But there was one segment that was actually pretty interesting. It was about birth. And that was like seared into my brain. So I got to see how the class was called Women in Other Cultures. And I got to see how women were born all across the planet. So I saw a lot of babies coming out of vaginas. And like it was like a day. But I was like seared into my brain. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's how that happens. And I think they made us watch another one of those videos, like when I went through, like when you're like in 5th or 6th grade and like your bodies are changing and let's explain it to you. Okay. So I think I saw one then, but the birthing thing is very interesting. And she made some interesting points. Our little lesbian communist teacher, she said that the medical profession kind of turns it into a factory, like a sausage factory. Like this is a natural experience. This is a natural function. Like you don't really need all of this equipment and all of this stuff. And a lot of it is, she would say, to like subjugate women, but it's really, I would say, more for the convenience of the doctors. And they just kind of rush you through and like you're on your back, you're not using gravity. They pump you full of all these drugs that actually impact the baby. And it's more about just kind of like an assembly line of babies. So it's not actually about the experience of the mother and the baby. And I thought that's pretty interesting. And then she showed us how other women in other cultures do it. And then we went to like Africa. It was like these African women like standing on these blocks, like these wooden blocks, just like squatting, and the baby comes right out. Just, bloop. Oh, well, that looks easier than that was. And you're like on your back and like the stirrups, and they're like, using forceps, like drag this kid out. So that I was like, well, that's interesting. That's pretty curious. And I have a lot of skepticism of a lot of the medical industry in general because of the profit incentive and other things, especially after COVID. So that kind of stuck with me. Of all the things in that class, that one stuck with me. Also something about tearing and how like cutting is worse for healing than tearing. Tearing is better than cutting. I thought, so some blocks. And that's like literally what our midwives are saying. Like she's going to be like moving around like in a quarterback, like center position and spiking the baby out. It's like all these weird things. Anyways, this is getting weird now, but it is a curious thing that happens. We're going to learn a lot about it. Natalie, is the streaming backpack for life on the street or just in time for the baby's birth? We're not going to live stream the baby's birth. Nobody wants to see that, but yeah. So, we like to go out, like we go to the museums and things. And I thought we could just throw the backpack on and take people into a museum. They're incredible. And I know many people have not been able to come out here and see these things. So then I was also thinking we could do like Supreme Court protests, when the Supreme Court is back in session, rather than kind of sitting here waiting for the opinions to drop, just put the backpack on, go turn the live stream on and just go out there and just talk to people outside the Supreme Court. Same thing with the Freedom 250. Just go out and join up in the, take the camera out there or just kind of turn it on. You can't come to the event. Okay. We'll just, yeah, they'll just have, you can come see and be a part of the Freedom 250 kind of a thing. So that was kind of the thought process, but it has to, it also has to be interesting. Like I could turn the camera on and it could be boring as hell. We try to liven it up, but you're kind of, at that moment, you're kind of like a victim, or kind of, playing in reality. So if it's interesting, it's interesting. If it's not, it's not. But there are a lot of, like the younger kids, a lot of them are doing IRL streaming. So they turn the cameras on, they just go out there, they go to restaurants, they go to clubs, they go to all sorts of things, and they do stuff. So it might be fun in DC. It's amazing. Like we went to the Botanic Garden, the Air and Space Museum. Maybe go during off hours. I think we could go into the Supreme Court. They're very finicky about cameras there, not into the actual courtroom, but I don't know if they would see it or like get mad at us if it's on the. So anyways, just playing around with it. And if anything, we'll just give it to rub some dirt on it. So, whatever. Hey, John, odd when stacks of papers are put into the machine to count prior an election day as mail-in ballots are received. And then when we go to the voting locations to vote in person and they count the votes as we hand them in, even having me put in my own vote. Interesting. From John R. Whitley. Yeah, I haven't paid much attention to California, just kind of presuming that it's rigged. Hey, what's up, Neuro D? Thank you for sharing our locals, watching thewatchers.locals.com. And we appreciate you sharing that. Neuro D in the house, mod extraordinaire. And those are the comments over on X. I saw a couple more come in, friends. Thank you for these. We saw One old guy, women from other cultures, especially third world, are much smarter and they know the difference between men and women, unlike Pop-Tarts in those classes. Well, she was an advocate for it. She was like, the doctors, she framed it as more like it's male doctors subjugating women in the health industry, which might be true, but it was like more of like a patriarchal thing. But it does feel like it's a little bit more mechanical. And even we went to the hospital and like, you know, I'm praying that nothing bad happens, that we don't need to go to the hospital, that everything is perfect. This baby just comes walking out of there and says, woo, that was amazing. And all goes well. But, and I'm not trying to discount what they do in the hospitals, but there's also like, there's an urgency there. Like they need the beds. It's more like a machine versus you just kind of wait at home. If it takes 2 days of labor, you're there. You just go, you know, just do it. And we talked a lot about the risks, you know, if you're in this position, we talked a lot about the risks about, you know, cords being wrapped around the neck or babies not breathing and all these things. And, you know, they assured us like there's, you know, they handle all that. If they're like 99% of the transfers from a home birth to the hospital, they told us are because of exhaustion or pain, right? It's just been going on too long. You just need to go and like get it done, or it's just too painful. You just need to go and kind of, you know, deal with the pain. But otherwise, if the baby's not breathing, they resuscitate it. They come with oxygen. If there's tears, they do minor stitching. Like they do a lot of the same things. And unlike a hospital, they're there, you know, for the experience until that baby comes out versus you're there for a long time. Doctor's like, all right, cut it. Like we're cutting this baby out. So anyways, truth be told, we don't really know exactly what we're doing, but we're praying about it. We're trying our best to learn, and we hope it's going to be amazing. So thanks for sending love our way. But friends, it has been a beautiful stream. Very grateful to have you here. Thanks for the fun conversation. Thanks for the advice and all of the fun here today. We'll pause here for the evening, and we'll come back tomorrow. Yeah, it is a little scary. There's a little scariness to it. Oopsie. You're right. It is a little scary. But the man upstairs knows what he's doing. So we're just going to turn it over to the care of God. And whatever happens, we'll be ready as best we can be. But friends, we'll leave it here. We'll have a beautiful evening. Hopefully you sleep very well. We'll come back tomorrow morning for our members only Friday stream. Looking forward to that. Otherwise, we'll be back in the evening. We'll very likely follow up on the Karmelo Anthony trial, see what else is happening there, see if any other big news is breaking, and close out the week strong. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing to our channel if you haven't done that. Thank you for inviting a friend or family member to come over and join us during the lives. We have some fun together, and hop in the chat. It's going to be a beautiful rest of our week. But we'll pause here. Big thank yous to our amazing mods and meme smiths. Muffin Rando, we got John in the house. Donut Mind Me. Neuro D, Janek, Dog Digger over on the Rumbles. We got Geegum Geegum, Elliot, Just Rhonda, and K-Bean and Carrie B, modding the fort down for us, keeping things nice and orderly around here. I hope your rest is outstanding. I hope you fall asleep instantly. I hope you stay asleep for the entire night and you have peaceful and pleasant and beautiful dreams bouncing around in your brilliant brain. We'll be back tomorrow to get into it again. Until we do, and when we do, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night. Sleep very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but here we see through the scripted ruse. Together we are watching the watchers shine in the light. Watching the watchers defending what's right. Watching the watchers stay each night together and live